Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Face Reading for Fun and Profit. I'm going to be your host for tonight, Dr. David Snyder. I just want to welcome you. So I kind of gave you guys a brief introduction into, hold on, some people are not muted. So let's go ahead and mute everybody really quick. Fine. Okay, perfect. All right. So, okay, let me just make sure I've got on here. A couple of things before we get into the webinar today. Today's webinar is all about how to use face reading to understand yourself and others, how to predict people's behavior, profile their personality and temperament, specifically character, well, not necessarily character, but temperament and personality, as well as a whole slew of other things. This class is all about practical application. If this is the scope of everything that there is to learn and discuss in the field of face reading, and we're going to go and we're going to talk about some things in this particular class that I haven't talked about maybe this way before. But if this is the scope of everything there is to learn in the short amount of time we have time for this much. So my commitment to you, first and foremost, is I will take you as far as I can in the time that we have, and I will point you in the direction of where to go to take your skill sets to the next level. Is that a fair trade? If you think that's a fair trade, go ahead and type that in the chat for me. This is an interactive webinar. I love questions. I love to share this information, but there are some ground rules we need to get out of the way, and there's some things I want to know about really, really quickly. First and foremost, go ahead, keep typing. It's all right. There's a little bit of a lag here, so I'm going to deal with that, but perfect. All right. So my first question is, how many, for my edification, how many people here this is your first time on a webinar experiencing the madness and mayhem that is Dr. David? Go ahead and type that in the chat if you're a first timer, what your name is, where you're checking in from. We'll go ahead and get that out of the way really quick. Virginia says, nope. First time from Virginia, very good. Not a first timers, okay. How about if you've been a veteran, if you've been in Planet David for longer than 3 or 4 months? Go ahead and type in the chat, veteran, and how long you been with us? Okay, lots of people, you guys have been around for a while, okay? I'm gonna have to pull out the big guns now, huh? All right, Ken from Colorado, Mike's, okay, very good. First face reading, okay, cool, cool. Face reading for me has been an amazing, amazing journey. It has allowed me to take all of the influence and therapeutic skills, social skills that I thought I had a pretty good handle on, and take them to a whole different level. And of course, I'm never going to stop learning. I'm never going to stop researching. So I'd like to share some of those insights with you. Now, obviously, the vast majority of people here have been around for quite some time. So you know, my webinars are not short. Right? There's always an offer connected with a webinar so that once you get the actionable skills we want you to have today, you can choose to take it to the next level. This webinar is no different. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to cover the foundations of face reading. We're going to cover the whys, the wherefores, what we can do with it, what we can't do with it, maybe some of the scientific and kind of corroborate past and present, what we know about ancient face reading or classical face reading, and more modern understandings of facial characteristics, personality, and temperament. There actually is a correlation between what the Chinese and the Asian cultures discovered centuries ago and what modern neuroscience and biology has discovered today. I'm going to share a little bit of that with you. My research is ongoing, but the bridges I've found have shown me that what the Chinese figured out so many centuries ago is actually very, very true today. And now we have a little bit of the science to understand why that might be true. Okay, please feel free to check up on any of the sources that I give. Any inaccuracies are purely my fault. I take credit for the synthesis, not the source. So that being said, if you logged in expecting a 90-minute webinar where I tease you, and then say, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, you might be a little bit shocked and disappointed. My job here is to take you, again, deep dive into this material with things that you can actually use. One of the problems that we have when we start studying these various fields of influence and persuasion is that we often get confused by what information is useful versus what's interesting. So I make a couple of distinctions. A, interesting and useful. Well, actually useful, interesting and useful, interesting but not useful. And that's kind of where I'm paring down the information. I've spent the last 3 or 4 years really going through the face reading materials that I was taught and reorganizing them so you didn't need a background in Chinese medicine or Oriental medical theory, yin yang, concepts or laws to make use of it. That being said, I'm also going to be launching in probably within the next 6 to 12 months, a classical face reading system that is parallel to the one I'm teaching you now. So for those of you who want to go into the classical Chinese aspects, we're not offering it yet, but it's coming. What we're going to give you today is how you can just look at somebody's face and in a very short amount of time extrapolate, usually within 90 seconds, you can extrapolate their emotional predominance, the emotions they're repressing, what their personality is most, their character and temperament is most likely like, and how you can actually you can take these same things, look at your face every morning and notice what's the state of your emotional, physical health, how to predict behavior and profile people. So that's kind of where I want to go today. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to be lovingly starting my formal presentation, which I lovingly call the Dr. David Dog and Pony Show. And I will be veering off the PowerPoint from time to time. The other thing I want to be very, very clear about is this is not my webinar. It's yours. And so I'm going to give you a canned presentation for about the first 60 to 75 minutes. I'm going to go through the things that I think are important to have. Then we're going to veer off and we're going to actually present the training programs that we have available for you today as a one-time offer. And then we're going to circle back and we're going to start to answer your specific questions that you have about face reading, how to apply it in your life, what to look for, things of that nature. So that's my plan. So like I said, if you're interested in just getting a training package or something like that, then anytime after the midway point, you're welcome to jump off. If you want to stay on and go deep dive into some of the more esoteric aspects of face reading, some of the more practical applications, get your specific questions answered, I invite you to stay till the end of the webinar because there's always stuff that comes out I didn't even know I knew. And I often say, the better the question, the better the training. And this is a training. I want you to come away with some things that you can just put into practice right away. And so that's what I've done with the first portion of this webinar, is kind of pared it down into the areas that I think will give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of understanding people, including yourself, thought processes, emotional well-being, character and temperament. These are things that I think, again, like I said, there's such a vast body of information when it comes to face reading. Paring it down sometimes can be difficult, and then making it linear for everybody that can understand it can be very, very difficult as well. So that being said, at some point, I'm going to ask you to type your most important questions in the webinar chats, and I will actually go through those after the offer, and I will start to just cherry pick and kind of bring all these things together in a way that you can put into practice right away. Does that sound like a fair deal? If you think that's fair, go ahead and type that in the chat for me. I'll take you as far as I can in the time we have. I'll point you where to go for the next level, and I'll answer as many questions as I can in that time. Cool. Now, my final disclaimer before I begin the Dog and Pony Show is this: if politically incorrect language, colorful metaphors, swearing, or the word boobies offends you, this is probably not the best use of your next 90 minutes to 3 hours. I don't try to offend anyone, but I do tend to be very provocative in my my presentation style, and that's a good thing, because as a face reader, when you're doing therapeutic face reading, for example, one of the things you have to learn how to do is to compassionately poke the bear, provoke people, because that's how you get the Shen, or the spirit, back into the body. Now, that's Shen is a term that comes from classical Chinese face reading, and we'll actually talk a little bit about classical approaches versus what we're going to be doing in today's webinar as part of kind of the foundation for this. So you can make a decision which direction you want to go first. That being said, let's go ahead and, oh, by the way, this means yes, this means no. There will be a test. This means I know the answer. This means I don't. This means I hope he doesn't call on me, right? I won't call on many people in this webinar. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into our slide presentation and get through the foundations, right? Again, how to instantly read anyone's personality in just minutes, understand how people think and behave, uncover hidden traumas, read people, repressed emotions, know how to persuade and influence people, measure sexual and romantic compatibility. I am curious, just for my edification, which one of these 4 or 5 bullets are you most interested in? Go ahead and take a moment, type that in the chat for me. You know, which part of this do you want me to really kind of drill down on? Bueller? Sexual and romantic compatibility. How did I know that was going to be a favorite? Influencing people. Very good. Okay. We only have two. Understanding people. Very good. Okay. Reading people. Okay. Excellent. All right. So for those of you, again, because most of you are veterans or been around Planet David for a while, I'm going to just go through my bio really, really quick. Who's Dr. David Snyder and why should I care? Well, first of all, most of you already know I am a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I graduated from Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. I've had an active practice in Solana Beach, California since 2006, where my specialty has been dealing with clinical or physiological illness that's due to repressed emotion. So I spent a lot of time looking underneath the hood of human beings, how they think, how they feel, and helping them get through stuff. I've authored over 15 different products in various forms of human influence, everything from conversational persuasion and influence, covert hypnosis, vibrational healing, vibrational influence skills, as well as face reading and behavioral influence techniques. In 2020, I was named the #1 NLP trainer of the year by globalgurus.org, and I would very much appreciate your vote for 2022. It would be very nice. My course, Killer Influence, was named the #1 NLP course of the year by Global Gurus for that year as well. And that's a little bit of our the rankings, the people we beat out for the #1 spot. Okay. I also have a 10th degree black belt in Ryukyu Kempo Karate, 4th degree black belt in Shaolin Kun Tao, 2nd degree black belt Kosho Kempo Ryu, 1st degree black belt in Fanku-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, which is an American form of Jiu-Jitsu, kind of like a combat judo. Certified instructor in combat sistema, single mano eskrima, and modern arnis. I've also got a huge body of information on various forms of energy work and energy healing, everything from Reiki, Master Teacher, Advanced Pranic Healer, Pranic Psychotherapy, DNA, Theta Healing, Bengston, and many forms of Qigong. Interestingly, my very first exposure to face reading, to reading the body, so to speak, actually came as a side effect of my influences in China, in Ryukyu Kempo. One of the first things that they taught us, once we realized that this pressure point stuff, this Dimok stuff, this key stuff was actually real, was they wanted us to understand the Chinese 5-element system and how these different elements could create areas in the body that had energetic reservoirs that you could influence much easier than areas that were energetically numb or devoid of energy. So interestingly, things have come full circle in that it was the martial arts that got me into face reading and actually into Chinese medicine, but I've always been and again, this is where a lot of my energy studies came from, was as a way to get better at martial arts. Changed my perspective on a lot of these energetic disciplines, and I came to it with eyes that most people don't usually have, because most people are coming at it from a healer's perspective, where I was looking at it from a way to, how do I use this for influencing people in ways that maybe not just for healing, but for self-defense, for persuasion and influence. So again, you go deep enough for your own reasons and you usually wind up coming full circle. So what do all these things have in common though? I mean, how does this, the martial arts and the Chinese and 5 elements and the NLP and the hypnosis and all these things that I do, what do they have in common? Well, the truth is one thing, pattern recognition. You see, everything human beings do, the entire universe that we exist in, is a series of interacting principles, and the same structures that control pretty much every aspect of the universe manifest at different levels of human creation and human awareness and human experience. So what does this have? And these things leave marks. These patterns leave clues. And if we know what to look for, if we know what to listen for, then we can perceive these patterns and these markings in the world around us. But not only that, we can look at the microcosm, which is the human being, and we can see these same patterns and structures playing out and unfolding in the physiology, in the psychology, the endocrinology. And so that's part of my job as a teacher, is to share with you, act as a bridge, if for lack of a better word, between all of these apparently different fields of study and show you where they're all the same. So the structures and the patterns arise, and you can actually use the universe as a way to teach you pretty much everything you need to know about how to get what you want and be the person you want to be. That being said, we're going to go as far as we can in the time we have. I'm going to do my best to eliminate jargon or things that may be confusing. But if you do have a question, again, don't be bashful. If you have a question, type it in the chat. If it's relevant to the section that we're on and I have time, I'll go ahead and answer it. If it's not relevant, I may put a tack in it or put a pin in it until we find a section of the webinar where it isn't relevant. If one of our veterans has the answer or experience with that question, they can go ahead and type that in. And finally, if you didn't, if that's you still want something more fleshed out, you'd like me to personally answer that question, when this video goes live on YouTube, go ahead and retype your question in the comments section below the video, and I will circle back and I will actually type an answer in there for you. Okay. So is this class for you? Well, a lot of people were interested in sexual and romantic compatibility. A lot of people are interested in influencing others and understanding yourself. So if I'm going to just list off a few things for you, and if this works for you, just type in "that's for me, that's for me, that's for me, that's for me." So how many of you would like to become more attractive to the opposite sex and maybe make them find you charming, fascinating, and irresistible? You think that would be a useful thing to be? Type that in the chat if you think that's useful. How many of you would like to be the most fascinating person at a party? Like the one everybody can't stop talking to or talking about? You think that'd be useful? Be warned, if you start doing this face reading stuff in parties, you will have a line out the door. You may not get home for a very long time, okay? If you'd like to learn how to banish fear and insecurity from your life and radiate confidence and move through the world looking younger, more fit, more vital, this is really a good place for you to be. If you'd like to make more money from your job, maybe even find a better job, or if you hire people, if you'd like to be able to look at somebody and find out, okay, is the job opening I have, is this person a good fit or not? Face reading for centuries was actually used in business as a way to determine if somebody was actually who they appeared to be. Because in ancient China, it was very, very easy for people to forge documents. But a qualified face reader could look at the shaping of your face, the facial features, and they could actually, with a very high degree of accuracy, match the personality to the credentials. And that's still used a lot in China and Asian countries today, right? Just like in France, if they still use handwriting analysis to vet potential employees and things of that nature. It's also used in matchmaking. So that's a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about are very, very powerful in terms of finding a compatible partner, in terms of finding the hell no people, so to speak, right? If you'd like to protect yourself from manipulators and easily handle difficult people, this is going to be a top level skill for you, okay? If you'd like to program yourself to get rid of your money blocks, create more financial abundance, and motivate people so they naturally want to follow your lead, this is a great place for you to be. Again, if you'd like to put people under your spell, this is one of the little known components of face reading, is that as you start to unpack the features in people's faces, there's a phenomenon known as Shendeshen Transmission that takes place. It's a kind of rapport, a rapport connection. We teach it in CPI, we teach it in Killer Influence. We don't call it Shen-to-Shen connection, we just call it kinesthetic rapport. But this Shen-to-Shen connection allows an exchange of vibrational information between your nervous system and another human being that causes them to go into a very profound suggestible state, usually for therapeutic purposes, but it can be used for other types of influence as well. So again, this is not something we normally talk about in the face reading webinar. We talk a lot about it in the face reading classes because you have to be very careful how you talk to people when you're doing an actual face reading. But I wanted you to understand that there is a very powerful vibrational trance component through the face reading process that tends to happen. Now, if you're just going to do like a 90-second reading or a distance reading where you're just going to look at a person from across the room and not interact with them, it's not quite as significant. But if you're going to actually get in a one-to-one interaction with people, this Shen-to-Shen communication, when you start to do face reading, you need to know how to manage it. So you can, in fact, put people under a very powerful spell because it generates in the person that you're communicating with a higher level of perceived authority regarding you. So you psychologically position yourself in their mind as someone who is an expert on them. And because we default to experts, these people will actually take whatever suggestions or information that you convey to them, and it will go very, very deep, and it will have a deep emotional, physiological reaction. In fact, if you're doing this in a therapeutic context, you may actually see people's facial features change right in front of you. Wrinkles may disappear, noses and cheekbones may pop out, or bones may become more prominent. It's a weird vibrational phenomenon. You don't got to believe it. You just got to do it. And for those of you who've done face reading and have had people's faces change right in front of you, go ahead and type in the chat what your experience was, so people can actually see that I'm not making this shit up, right? All right. Okay. So here's my personal promise to you if you stay until the end of the webinar. I'm going to teach you some of the most powerful and easy methods to read, understand yourself and others, how to understand personality and temperament, because they're not the same, how to elicit somebody's trauma history, how to know what emotions they're holding on to when significant traumas may have happened, how to judge and gauge sexual and romantic compatibility, and how to become a master of people reading and influence. We're going to show you how to take it to the next level. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going for today. So my question for you is, and I asked this already, but I'll ask it again because it may have changed. What actually do you want to learn about today? What's your biggest, most important question about face reading that I can answer for you today? Yeah, reading clients' faces. Okay, so let me show you this really quick. So this is a chart. This particular graphic that you're seeing. Can everybody see it? Okay. This particular map is over 2,500 years old, I believe. It was found in one of the very earliest books on Chinese medicine. It was page 2. So Chinese medicine and face reading in Chinese medicine have been a part of the entire system for almost 3 centuries. Now, one of some of the differences between what I would consider classical face reading and modern face reading is, let me show you this. This is a chart I just made up for you guys. So classical face reading divides the human being into four or five different substances, for lack of a better word. Jing, which is the energetic and material foundations of the body, and it relates to, again, from a Western perspective, a person's innate constitution, the effects of their lifestyle, the history of trauma history, their emotional history, and generic health. So we can read the entire body, the state of your organs, the emotional well-being that you have, significant events that have happened to you, by looking at your face. Then you have what we call the chi level, which is all about personality, attitude, character, and temperament. This is going to be where the emphasis is going to be tonight, because most of us just want to understand ourselves better. You have a substance known as Shen, which is a very high vibration. Shen translates as spirit, heart, and mind. So this is all about this person's psycho-emotional health, their charisma, their spirituality, their levels of charisma, lie detection, psycho-emotional, things of that nature. Mental disorders, gu, possession, Shen disturbances, which are, again, mental disorders. And then, of course, it gets into the more esoteric things, which one is called Ming. Ming refers to your destiny or your golden path, the spiritual mission that you came to this life to fulfill. And it has it's related to the Chinese Bazi, which is fortune telling, basically. And then finally, you have what they call the Ling Aspect. And the Ling Aspect is really all about the magical or alchemical processes. How do you convert Jing into Qi, or Ling into Qi, and become an immortal, basically? So this has a strong correlation with a lot of European alchemical practices, a lot of psychotherapy, hypnotic processes. You'll see this a lot. And it also has a prognosticative aspect to it. In other words, a predictive aspect, like fortune telling or predicting the future. Now, again, we're not going to talk about all these things today because, again, unless you have a background in Chinese medicine, they're not really going to help you all that much. Now, if you want to learn about those things, we'll have classes later on about that. What we're going to talk about, though, is something I like to call, hold on a second. Where is it? Modern face reading. Modern face reading can be divided up into two primary components. The first, and we use profiling as a way to say this. So the first is active profiling. Active profiling is things you might be used to if you've watched shows like Lie to Me or The Mentalist. Some of you are talking about The Mentalist. You're familiar with cold reading. And what this is and we call it active profiling because this particular study is based on emotional changes that occur in the moment, or the microcosm. Okay. So, for example, one of the things that you might see in using a micro expression and again, guys like Paul Ekman, Joe Navarro, Chase Hughes, these are all people who have spent a lot of time unpacking the subtle shifts in facial behaviors, emotional shifts, body language, things of that nature that happen in the moment. Does that make sense? So as I'm talking to you and you're having emotional responses, some of them you'll feel okay about expressing, others you'll want to repress. And in that moment, you try to repress things. You may grimace or you may pout. It's a micro expression. It happens in a fraction of a second, usually indicative of a repressed emotion or emotion you're trying to control. Okay, that's what we call active profiling. Okay. This class we're talking about it a little bit, but we won't drill. If you come to spycraft or defense against the dark arts, we'll drill down more on these active profiling techniques. But what happens after a lifetime of microexpressions? When we look at a person's face and we see the results, the effects, the ramifications of all the things they've been holding on to, they've been repressing, been refusing to deal with, the face they've been trying to show the world versus what they do behind closed doors. That leads us to what I call passive profiling. And passive profiling is what we're going to be talking about today. These are things that, unless you go in and directly seek to influence them, are largely static. They're the result of a lifetime of microexpressions, if that makes sense. Are you guys with me so far? Is this useful? Okay, cool. All right. So now, when we talk about face reading, there's certain areas. We're gonna do some very big picture stuff first. So one of the things that we want to talk about first and foremost is right versus left, top versus bottom. When you look at a person's face and you look at their right side, okay, in Chinese medicine, the right side, this is my right, by the way. All right. In Chinese medicine, a person's right side is considered their public face. In other words, this is the face that they want to show everybody. If you were studying with applied behavior research or any of Chase Hughes' stuff, who's a good friend of mine, I really enjoy his work a lot. We would call this your social mask, right? The face you want to show the world. The left side of the face is your private mask. This is who you are when nobody's looking, when the doors are closed, the curtains are drawn, when you're by yourself or with your most intimate, trusting people you trust the most. This is who you are, okay? So one of the first things that we want to start to look at in people is we want to look at and we want to use our left eye to do it. This is a weird thing because most of us tend to be right eye dominant. Our right eye tends to focus on the other person's right side. So we want to start to look at people through our left eye. This is, again, something I learned from my teacher, the late Lillian Bridges. She authored the book Face Reading in Chinese Medicine, and I honor and respect her. She just passed away very, very recently. And so part of the reason I'm launching the classical face reading systems is to honor her. I'm left eye dominant. Should I use my left eye? Virginia, I would say if you're naturally left eye dominant, then I think you could just go as is, right? I think that would be perfectly fine. But I would test it, just see which gives you a better reading. But notice that you tend to, if you're right eye dominant, you'll tend to look at a person's right side. Now, why is this useful? One of the things that you learn in Defense Against the Dark Arts and Defense and Spycraft and a lot of the applied behavior material is we want to know what is the face that people want to show the world, because that's what they want to have massaged. That's what they want to have stroked. So in business applications, for example, you don't want to pull back a person's private social masks or public face unless you want them to feel vulnerable and in many cases defensive. That's really not a good idea in business applications. Okay. In fact, strategically, what you want to do when you look at somebody's public face is you want to deliver messages and communications that make them feel validated on the public side. Does that make sense? Does everybody know what I mean when I say validation? Type in the chat if you, again, I need to know you're with me because this can get kind of dry sometimes. Yeah. Okay, good. So one of the best ways to do both simultaneously is to use the technique we call the echo technique. The echo technique is the most ethical, powerful, and unstoppable way to just get deep level rapport and massage the public and the private master at the same time. Okay, so let me show you. Let me go back to some of my graphics here and jump into this. By the way, and also in terms of, let me just finish this up really quick. I have a little note here under passive profiling. What you're going to see is that there's actually a correlation. A lot of people have criticized the classical Chinese approaches because they say it's not scientific. The work of Dr. Helen Fisher has established that there's actually a correlation between certain facial characteristics and personality type. Okay, and then that directly goes to the behaviors that they create. I'm gonna show you that shortly. Let's see here. Let's go up to public and private. So once again, for those of you who want to take a screenshot or whatever, social mask. This is what people want you to see versus what they don't want you to see. So if we look at this particular graphic, again, I apologize for the pixelation. So the left side is our private face. Sorry, left side is private. Right side is public. What do we want to look at when we're assessing a person's right versus left side? Well, the first thing we want to look for is asymmetry. Why do we want to do that? Because the relative size of a person's feature will give you a very strong indication of their temperament. Now, what the particular trait I talk about right here is the eyes. When I'm looking at the eyes, I want to look at the right side versus the left side. And I want to figure out which is bigger. Now, when the eyes tell us how open a person is, how emotionally available and expressive they are. If you see someone who has an eye that's bigger on the right side, this tells you that when they're in public, they will be more expressive, they will be more open to ideas, they will tend to be more forthcoming in things. If that public eye is actually held closed or smaller, this person will tend to be a little bit more secretive. They'll be a little bit more, they'll filter the information a little better, both going in and out. So when you see someone holding their eyes, like if they have big eyes, for example, and they hold them open, this is somebody who is going to be a lot more trusting, a lot more emotionally expressive, but not going to hold things back quite so much. It can be an indication of suggestibility, not always though. It means they have a very open heart. Someone whose eyes are held closed or more narrowed. These people are very selective. They filter information that comes in. They filter information coming out. They're the kinds of people who will tend to answer a question with a question. If you're talking to somebody in terms of lie detection and their eyes are very open, and you ask a question, all of a sudden the eyes get very squinty or very narrowed. You might see the light behind the eyes kind of dim a little bit. You've just triggered somebody. You've tapped into something that they don't want to give out, or they're suddenly a little bit more suspicious and wary, I guess is a good way to say it. So when we look at how wide the eyes are open, and the reason that we say that is because the Shen, or the spirit, comes to the heart and then it shines up out the eyes. So if you've ever seen somebody who was very depressed, for example, and all of a sudden something happens and they get very joyful, their eyes just kind of light up and this energy just kind of beams out. The spirit, the Chinese call that having Shen, or spirit. It means more of their energetic field is actually in their body and animating it. And what happens when people start to lie, unless they get joy from the lie, okay, and that's psychopaths and a lot of your sociopaths will have a little bit called duping the light. You can see a change in the light behind the eyes. Okay. And so that if you see that the eyes start to squint, you see the light kind of dim a little bit, that's usually an indication that you've triggered them in some way. But when I look at somebody's public side versus private side, if that eye is held really more open on their private side, I know that behind closed doors, this person is a lot more forthcoming, a lot more emotional in many cases, takes in information a lot easier. So this is, again, some things that we want to look at, because it's the relative symmetry between the right side and the left side that gives us an indication of who a person is to the public, who they are behind closed doors. Okay. Let me go back to my here. Okay. So when we look at cheekbones, well, we look, you don't see this too often. Sometimes you'll see cheekbones that are asymmetrical. This just tells you how bossy they are. They tend to be. I don't see a lot of asymmetry in cheekbones, but I do see a lot of asymmetry in the mouth many times. Is the mouth big or small, right? Is it bigger on the right side versus the left side? Is the mouth upturned or downturned? People who have upturned mouths tend to be a little bit more on the optimistic side. They tend to be more on the glasses half full side. It can also lead to a little bit of not necessarily gullibility, but more suggestibility. But you'll find many times when you look at your right side versus your left side that the thickness of the lips, for example, let me move this really quick. Okay, that's not helping me. For some reason, it's not letting me. Okay. How big are the lips? Are the lips fuller on one side versus the other? And this actually, and when we talk about the fullness of the lips, hold on a second. You're actually going to see a direct correlation between active profiling and passive profiling. The thinner the thinner a person's lips are, the more they're repressing, the more information they're holding back and refusing to let out. So if they have a lot more lip, and again, this would be something you would do in a face reading, but if you peeled down this lip and you saw a lot more lip that was wet behind here, you could see that this person was probably going through a lot of it was spending a lot of time in environments where they're not allowed to express, where they have to kind of bite back and hold back the things that they want to express. If you're talking to somebody and you ask them a question and you see this, what we call lip compression, this is what we call an active profiling. This is something that happens in the moment. This is somebody who has something that they wanted to say, but they're biting back, they're holding back. They don't want to say, or they don't think they should say. So again, you can see people who hold their lips this way all the time and people who who are only that way in the moment. So that's the difference between an active profiling technique and a passive profiling. But people who really hold their lips tighter tend to be people who aren't as expressive, who are very selective in the information that they let out. Okay, they can also, believe it or not, they can also be actually more sensuous or sensual than people who have fuller lips, which is kind of weird if you think about it. But if they only do it around certain people, whereas people with the fuller lips tend to be a little bit more outgoing in terms of what they, who they share with, if that makes any kind of sense. So again, there are some really cool correlations between this and handwriting analysis, which to me was really, really helpful. So let's go back to this. So one of the things that, let me see here. That's not what I want. Okay. Okay, so, all right, we talked about this. So the next thing I want to talk about really, really quickly is, would it be useful if you could look at somebody and kind of know how they go about making decisions? If we, our first look at the face talked about the right side versus the left side. In this next slide, what we're going to talk about are what we call the three zones of the face. Now, the Chinese named the upper zone the heaven zone. The middle zone was man or human, and the third zone was earth. And what this relates to is what is the kind of information a person wants to process first. Now, if we were studying NLP, we would talk about something called propulsion systems. And we'd also talk about modalities. And what we've discovered is that human beings tend to have a preferred order to things, so that they do things. So if you look at somebody who has a much larger upper zone in their head, you're seeing someone who's primarily data-driven. These are people that if you want them to make a decision, they're going to ask you for the data to support whatever ask you have. People with a larger middle zone tend to be more on the practical side. These are people, when you talk to them, they want to know what you have is going to do for them. What's it going to do for them? How's it going to make their life easier? What's the practical benefits of having it or doing it or owning it, right? The next layer is going to be what we call the earth zone. The earth zone people, these people tend to be much more emotional and instinctive. They're very, I guess the best way to say this is they're very gut driven. Okay, so and the secret way for them to get to act on something is, do they love it? Now, one of the things that the common misconceptions that happens with people when they look at these three zones is that they think that we're one or the other. We aren't one or the other. We're all three. The difference is, what's the preferred order that we do these things in? Are we somebody who likes to look at something we love, for example? Look at something we love, think about what it'll do for us, and then look at the data that supports it. That would be a 1, 2, 3 code, right? Or could we be someone who wants to know, okay, give me all the data that supports the conclusion you want me to have, right? I'll see if my gut tells me it's right, and then I'll look at what it'll do for me. So in this case, you have what we call a 3, 1, 2 code, right? And then finally, of course, tell me what it'll do for me, show me the data that supports it, and then does it check out? Does my gut tell me it's a good thing to do, right? So when we look at these propulsion systems, or we look at decision-making processes, if you go to a place like, well, again, so whatever tech campus you have in and around your area. So if you go to a college campus, for example, in the tech, and especially the tech areas, or you go to Silicon Valley, or you go to Qualcomm, and you just hang out on the campus in and around lunchtime, you'll see that the vast majority of people walking around have a massive upper zone. My partner with Jet Webinar, Brandon Burr, every time I ask him a question, he answers me with a spreadsheet. So people have this very large upper zone, love data. They love to process data. They love to extrapolate and think abstractly, right? If you try to present a data-driven person with a gut level presentation, they're going to look at you and say, and it's going to have little to no effect. Because the first thing they're going to ask you is, where's your data, right? Where's the proof that this is going to do what you say? If you try to hit somebody who's got a very large middle zone, who's very pragmatic and practicality driven, and you start hitting them with all this data, well, we studies show this and this and this, the person is going to say, okay, well, how's that going to make my life easier? What can I do with that, right? So the idea in terms of understanding these three zones is you want to look at the relative ratios of upper, middle, and lower, and present the information to the person in that sequence. So if their biggest zone is data, their smallest zone is emotional or gut driven, then you would present 3, 2, 1. If they're pragmatic and then data driven and then emotional, then you go 2, 3, 1, right? Can you get away with just presenting one? Yeah, you probably could, but if you really want to cover all your bases and make sure that you've got their maximum attention, looking at it this way, and a lot of this actually will correspond to some of the Myers-Briggs type indicators and things like that. It's kind of cool. Thinker, right? Judger, perceiver. Anyway, so again, little cross references there. Let's see the questions. Matthew says, did I say becoming more? Yeah, that's what we call the Ling module, which is more on the alchemical metaphysical sides. Okay. Can you see how we could use this? Does this make life easier a little bit? I'm hoping. Go ahead and type it in. Come on, guys. Let me know you're with me. All right. So the next thing I'd like to talk about, and to me, the next map I'm going to share with you, to me, the moment I saw it in Lillian's class, was the one that just really sent off all kinds of alarm bells for me. It was one that allowed me to really say, okay, that's useful. What we're going to talk about next is, would it be useful if you could look at somebody and know what emotions they're expressing, what emotions they're repressing, whether they're skeptical, whether they're more trusting, things of that nature? Would that be useful? Okay. So how many of you guys are therapists or coaches or salesmen or do some form of influence or therapeutic work? Okay. This particular map for those applications is going to be probably the single most useful map that I've come across. And there's lots of maps, by the way, lots of maps. So this is called the emotional map of the face. It's the one I usually spend the most time in a webinar on. And again, we're going to go, I'll keep teaching from the emotional map until about quarter past. Then I'll present to you the training opportunities we have coming up. Then I'll circle back, finish the emotional map, and then we'll drill down on any specific questions that you ask. Does that sound like a fair process? Yes or yes? Okay. So let's look at the emotional map of the face. Okay. So this is, I usually do this in clockwise order. We're going to take this in groups of 3 or 4, and then I'll take questions on these 3 or on that group, and then we'll move on. So starting, if this is the 12 o'clock position right up here, hold on a second. This is our 1 o'clock, right? So the first one I want to talk about is skepticism. And skepticism can be seen by a line extending directly from about the center of the eyebrow and contouring that eyebrow line. So these lines here are your skepticism lines. And remember that these lines, this particular map is showing you a single trait. They can be bilateral. In other words, I can have skepticism here. I can also have it here. So skepticism doesn't only appear on the right or left side. What you do want to look at, though, taking the previous map on public versus private into consideration, is when you look at these traits, which side are they deeper on, right? Which side are they more pronounced? Because that will tell you where these traits are more dominant and where they've been doing them most often. So skepticism can be seen as a line that extends from about the center of the eyebrow. And when I see it most of the time, it's usually a tracing. It usually literally parallels that eyebrow. Okay. The next trait we want to look at is joy. Now, joy extends from the outer corner of the eye, also known as the inner canthus, and it travels upward. Now, when we talk about joy in terms of Chinese medicine, we need to kind of clarify a little bit. In Chinese five-element theory, joy is considered, they say there are 5 pathological emotions, one for each of the 5 yin organs. And they talk about joy being the pathology that affects the heart the most. The Chinese conception of joy is actually more about excitement. Too much excitement can negatively affect the heart. When you have too much excitement, you often see what the Chinese call mania. Mania can be seen as a line that extends from the outer canthus, and this one travels up past the eyebrow. So if you look at, again, I'm not talking this in a political way, but if you look at pictures of Donald Trump, especially when he was in office, you see him from the profile, you will see these long lines traveling up the side from the outer canthus upward. This is why he was tended to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning tweeting. These people don't sleep a lot. Okay, so you have joy or happiness, and when you see these lines, these are good lines to have, right? Also extending down from the inner outer canthus are shorter lines we call sadness lines. So these are more would be more acute. Let me change. I got to change the stylus on this because it's too thick. Yeah. There we go. So sadness is seen as a line that extends from the outer canthus, and it's short. It doesn't go very far. If that sorrow has been around for a while, that sadness has been around for a while, and it's usually older and deeper, it will transform into what we call sorrow lines. Sorrow lines tend to extend down into the cheek area. And one of the reasons that we say this is if you looked at the facial map, let me go back to this. When a Chinese this is what we look at in terms of personality and temperament, right? When a Chinese medical practitioner looks at your face, this is what they see. So you can see here, going back to this map of the sadness lines, when sadness and sorrow extend down, it passes into the liver, or I'm sorry, into the lungs, the lung line. There's another line called the grief line, and it's an older, more deep level of sadness. All of these pass through this lung area on the face. So for those of you who see clients, many times when you start to unpack things like COPD, emphysema, asthma, allergies, these people you'll start to uncover hidden sadness, grief, or loss migrating to that organ. Also, when people start to clear grief, there will be a very specific breathing pattern that they tend to exhibit. And it almost goes like a, right? And so when you start to clear grief from the body, the lungs will start to activate differently. So the energy of sadness will go short. If it's long, if they've had it longer and deeper, more repressed, it'll go about midway. If it's something that's really, really old, really, really deep, it'll tend to travel all the way down. Now, what's interesting about sorrow is that it's unprocessed sadness grief. It's unprocessed sadness and sorrow. If you unpack this, you may be unpacking an event or an issue that happened when they were, they may be 50 or 40 or 50 years old. This may have happened when they were 2. And their response to it will be almost like it happened yesterday. If that makes any kind of sense. They've been locking it down, refusing to express it, and it's migrated to create a physiological counterpart in the body. The body works a lot on physiological metaphor. Really cool when you look at it from the holographic perspective, which is why facial markings can change. You'll notice as you clear this sorrow, this grief out, or the sorrow, or the sadness, those lines will start to fade. We have pictures of people who began studying face reading, 20, 30 years ago, and they look, you can tell they're in their 40s or early 40s or 50s. They're in their 60s, going on 70s now, and their lines are gone because they've cleared up all their emotional baggage. But you can look at somebody, and if you see these lines down the side of the face, you know that they've been holding on to a lot of stuff. They're very vulnerable to any kind of sadness-based influence, okay? But they lock it down. If you start to clear these things, and if you look at your face in the morning, you'll start to see, you can look at your face and say, okay, I need to work on clearing my sadness. I need to work on clearing my grief. I need to work on clearing the loss. There's one more line that I want to talk about, and I'll start taking some questions about these. And that is what we call a lost love line. A lost love line starts at the inner canthus of the eye, and I've seen 2 variations on this. It either comes straight down through that lung area once again, or sometimes what it'll do is it'll actually migrate across to towards the sadness area, and then it'll come down. So let me show you what that looks like on the diagram. So if we're looking at lost love, a lost love line will start at that inner canthus, and it'll migrate down. Now, in Golden Path, when we're teaching you how to get on your spiritual mission and become the best version of yourself, we are very, very sensitive to when these lines show up. This line, in spite of what the label, I guess, lost love, it doesn't necessarily relate to a person. When we talk about lost loves, what we're talking about many times is some activity that formed a fundamental part of this particular person's golden path, right? Something that when you did this activity, you just got more energy. You lit up like a Christmas tree on the inside, made your heart sing. You guys ever had an experience, or have you ever had an activity that every time you did it, you found energy, even if you were like dog ass tired, the moment you had an opportunity to do this thing, you just, boom, all of a sudden you were like the Energizer Bunny, right? Those moments, we call those Shen-in moments. In those moments, those activities, you came in, these are part of the spiritual mission that the universe sent you here to do. And so you get extra energy, you tap into extra energy reserves when you do those activities. If, however, a situation or circumstance or event happens in your life that causes you to stop doing them, that loss to your personal identity will mark you from the inner canthus across and down. Now, one of the things that we do in our Golden Path workshops is we actually audit your entire life, and we look at your pictures from when you were a little baby all the way up to the present moment, and we look at when you were more fully present in your body, what activities you were doing, and when you weren't, so we can figure out what happened that caused you to kind of leave, to kind of step out. When we talk about shedding out, what we're talking about is dissociation. People tend, as they get more and more uncomfortable, more and more unhappy, they tend to dissociate. They enter dissociative states. When we audit your life, we're going to look at places that caused you to be more in your body versus when you were more outside of your body. And we do this through the light underneath the skin, the face, your facial expressions. We also track these lost love lines, because part of your golden path, part of the thing that gives you your best life, are the things you stopped doing that made your spirit be more in your body. Now, an interesting thing happens when you start reincorporating these elements back into your life. You get younger. You get physically more healthy, more vital. The relationship status of people around you shift for the better, and you move through successes in life faster. But you have to learn how to use the innate GPS the universe programmed into you, which is, does it cause more Shen or spirit to come into your body? Does it cause more Shen to leave your body? When you are forced to give up something that is part of your spiritual personal mission in this life, you'll mark, okay? So the common teaching story I use is, let's say when you were a kid, you fell in love with horses. Anytime you had a chance to be around a horse, to ride a horse, to take care of a horse, your body lit up like a Christmas tree. You went to bed at night thinking about horses. You got up thinking about horses. And then maybe 10, 15 years later down the line, whatever it was, you meet somebody. And for whatever reason, they don't like horses, they're allergic to horses, they're afraid of horses. But because you love that person, you give up horses. You'll mark. Because that horse activity was such a big piece of your identity that you mark the passage of it in the sorrow. So all the things that deal with lung or the metal area of the face, the negative aspect of it is loss, any form of loss, right? Short-term, long-term, whatever. So Matthew says, I stopped paying attention to a friend of mine and her lost loved ones were there constantly. Yes. If there's a friendship that and again, but I want to be very clear. This can be a person, but many times it's an activity. So part of the things that we need to do as counselors and therapists, face readers, behavioral profilers is we want to be aware of what the significance of this is and encourage people or stimulate that need in some way to get them back on track, if that makes any kind of sense. So these markings are always very, very powerful triggers and psychological levers in people. If you have these markings, if you see markings on these people, be very, very careful how you talk about it, because you will trigger them emotionally, okay? But you can get it back. So if you have the tools that we teach in Identity by Design or regression or real world trauma resolution, self-mastery supercharger, or from the YouTube channel, the Transformational Triad, you actually have some really, really powerful tools to remove these lines and get that person back on track. Okay, so is this been useful? Is this helpful? Type in the chat. Okay. Let me look at our YouTubers. Does anybody have any questions about the things I've covered so far? Okay. All right, let's go on then. The next set of traits I want to talk about hold on a second, are going to be humor, bitterness, and fear. So humor can be seen by a line in the bottom lip. So people with this particular marking love a good joke. They can usually tell a good joke. So I would go so far as to say people with this line, not only do they appreciate jokes, they tend to have a really good sense of comedic timing. Either they just kind of know when the right time to deploy a joke is. Sometimes you'll see people who have these little vertical lines directly below the lower lip. When you see these markings, I want you to think bitterness. Right? Now, the next, bitterness, over nurturing, and disappointment are what I call the terrible trio. Because they almost always appear together. They don't have to, but they a lot of times in cancer patients, you will see these lines. And so let me explain kind of the etiology of what this is about. And I want to start with the over nurturing aspect of it. A lot of us who are very earthy, who are very much want to take care of people, we're caregivers in some way. We tend to give our energy to people. And people with these markings often grow up following rules. Now, here's what I mean. We're taught that life has rules, and if you follow them, you'll be rewarded. And that's the rule that's the kind of the motto that they live by. God said, I'm supposed to be a generous, loving, caretaking, dutiful husband, wife, mother, son, whatever. And so what happens is these people get in a situation where they have to take care of people. And they do it because that's what the rules say they're supposed to do. They do it out of a sense of duty, a sense of loyalty, because they want to go to heaven, whatever it is. But what happens is these people continue to keep giving, but they never quite get back the level of nurturing that they're giving out. And after a while, they start to get very, very tired. And they keep giving and they keep giving and they keep giving with the expectation that it's going to come back from them. And it never does, right? And what's even more frustrating for them, and because of that, they become very disillusioned. And that's where disappointment comes in. Hold on a second. Disappointment can be seen as a wrinkle at the corner of the mouth that trends downward. So after so much over nurturing and not getting back, they develop these lines. When they realize that they're never going to get back what they put out, they develop disappointment lines. After a while, they start to see something else, and that is this. Other people don't play by the same rules, and they get more stuff. And after seeing that for a certain amount of time, that bitterness, that disappointment can become bitterness, which is almost always seen as these horizontal lines directly below the lip. Okay. Now, when you take over nurturing, disappointment, and bitterness, you have a recipe for cancer. I've said this many times in other trainings and things like that. There's no such thing as an emotionally healthy cancer patient. Okay. Now, it does not mean if you have these lines that you're going to get cancer. It does mean, however, that if you have these lines, you need to start giving to yourself more than you give to others. You need to stop expecting people to return things at the same level. And you need to realize that you don't have to follow those rules, right? In fact, when I see these markings in people, you almost always see these people with this have some kind of irritable bowel, constipation, or intestinal issues, usually digestive issues as well. Okay, we're not here to talk about the health aspects of it or the Chinese medicine diagnostic aspect, but I can diagnose the entire body from the markings on your and the colorations on your face. Okay, when you have these three for a long enough period of time, and the body doesn't see any way out, these people will tend to manifest some kind of terminal or chronic illness. Okay. So once again, I'm not saying if you have these lines, you are going to get cancer, but chances are, if you have some form of chronic illness, look to see if any of these lines are present. You may be surprised, right? Now, there's other indicators of chronic illness that go beyond this, but this is the one that I see play out a lot clinically when I start to help people release it. Right? And I've made a career of helping people get rid of terminal and chronic illness. So I think this is important for us. And again, one of the, a lot of you are saying that one of the reasons that you want to learn this is because you want to understand yourself better. When you look at yourself in the morning, right? Inventory the lines on your face. Make sure you're hydrated, first of all, but look at the lines on your face and use them as a map to figure out what you need to work on. Because your face doesn't lie to you. It's the passive markings on your face will not lie. Now, sometimes these markings only come out when you're actually doing a facial expression, like laughing or crying or whatever. And that's okay. That means they're just not quite as deep, or they're more hidden or more dissociated. But if they're there when you're not making any form of active expression, these are things you've been doing a lot. And you really need to focus on clearing that. Now, from an influence perspective, if I see somebody with a lot of disappointment, right, I could talk about how, disappointing it can be when people don't focus on what I'm trying to tell them, or I think, and I can actually get them, using like some of the linguistic patterns and things like that, I can stimulate positively or negatively that emotional trait in them and get them moving in a certain direction predictably. Now, again, most of the time when I use these things, I'm just looking at it to understand who I'm dealing with so I can have more compassion towards them. But again, when I influence and persuade people, some of our most powerful triggers are not positive ones. Now, I'm not a big fan at all of negative stimuli influence-based techniques. But there are certain applications where people will respond more consistently and predictably to an away from strategy than they will a towards strategy, right? And you should always build them together, right? But for those of you who are influence students, can you see how this might be useful in a behavioral influence type of a situation? Type yes in the chat if you can. For those of you who are therapists, can you see how this can give you significant insight into the clients in front of you? Right? Okay. The last one we're going to talk about before we jump into training program we have going on is fear. Now, I see fear in faces in one of two ways. What you see on this particular map is what are wrinkles on the face. So if you have someone who's been living with a lot of chronic repressed fear, you may see wrinkles. I'll tell you what I see more often, though, is what they call the orange peel phenomena. And the orange peel phenomena looks a little bit more like this. Oh, let me use bigger dots. So you'll see little dots, like little orange people. Have you ever seen the skin of an orange? You'll see these little dots in this chin area. People who have a lot of dots in this chin area, or a lot of little dimples in this chin area, are people who've been holding on to and repressing a huge amount of fear in their lives. They're afraid, they feel it strongly inside, they just don't want you to know it. Okay, so when we start to look at this from a therapeutic perspective or from a behavioral profiling perspective, these people are going to be highly susceptible to fear, but they'll deny it many times. They'll be in denial. So again, when I see that, I know that when I start to talk to the unconscious mind and I start to take it to the very first scene, situation, or event that is the source, the beginning, the root cause of XYZ problem, I'm probably going to be visiting some form of fear. Okay. The last trait I want to talk about, again, I was going to end it at fear, but this one is on the actually, you know what? We will end it here, and we'll talk about what we've got coming up. So, is this useful so far? Cool. Excellent. Very good. With your permission, I've prepared a little presentation for you in terms of how to take these skill sets to the next level so that you can become, some people are asking, can you make money doing face reading? Yes, my teacher, Lillian, would regularly charge $700 to $750 a session to do face reading for people. If you can do face reading and you have the therapeutic skills to help them get over their shit, you can charge even more. So for those of you who want a really cool additional income stream or an alternative income stream, becoming a certified face reader is a great way to take these behavioral profiling skills, these character and profiling skills, these diagnostic skills to a whole different level. To that end, for those of you who want to understand yourself better, do sexual and romantic compatibility, which we'll talk about when we come back, I prepared a package for you that I'd like to show you. So with your permission, I'm going to go ahead and present that to you. Is that okay? Cool. All right. Let me find my PowerPoint. If permission has been granted, dun, da, da, da. Introducing the Face Reading for Fun and Profit, Secrets of People Reading and Personality Transformation Home Study course. This is a course that will teach you all about how to take your life to the next level, utilizing the skills of what I call modern face reading. It's going to teach you how to understand yourself better, how to read people instantly, even from across the room, how to predict their behavior, how to help more people by understanding them, their public side, their private side, the things they want, the things they're holding on to, the things they don't want to talk about, and helping them get clear of it. You'll feel more confident because when you look at somebody, everything you need to know about them will be as plain as literally the markings on their face. If you'd like to feel more powerful and confident, socially adept, become the most influential, charming, charismatic, and irresistible person at parties, networking functions, closing more sales, this is probably one of the most important packages that you can take advantage of right now. And here's what we put together. Now, this offer does expire tonight at 11:59 p.m. That's November 4th, 2021. And here's what we got. So first and foremost, we're going to give you the Secrets of Face Reading for Fun and Profit home study course. This is a course that will teach you systematically how to assess personality, character, and temperament, how they help discover how people think and make decisions, how to unlock their emotional trauma so you can either figure out when they happened as well as how to help people resolve them. You'll learn about people's management style based on their facial markings, certain facial characteristics and constellations, a brow bone, a chin, jawline, cheekbones. When these come together in certain configurations, you can almost always extrapolate what a person's management style or relationship style is going to be. You'll learn all about sexual and romantic compatibility. One of the things that we've discovered, and maybe if we have time when we get back to the regular presentation, we'll talk about the correlation between hormonal pathways, physiology, Chinese five-element theory, and even the Western approaches from the ancient Greeks, and how they all actually mean the same things in terms of behavior, personality, and temperament, how you can start to unpack those for compatibility purposes. We'll talk about the ability to manage money and other resources. Different facial configurations actually relate and manage money differently. They have different sets of outlooks and behavioral profiles for accumulating wealth, for maintaining their wealth, things of that nature. And once you understand this, you can actually change or work towards your strengths and minimize your weaknesses, so to speak. You'll learn how to connect with people far more powerfully than you've probably ever been able to do before, because you'll create that, what we call that Shendeshen or kinesthetic report transmission that allows you to deeply influence and feel understood and communicate to somebody in a way that they feel completely understood, as well as positioning yourself psychologically in their mind as the absolute authority on who they are. It's really, really powerful. It's something you should not do except with the utmost respect for the person you're doing it with. But it does give you tremendous, tremendous influence over the average human being and insight into how they work. You literally become the most fascinating person to everyone you meet, especially if you combine this with the echo technique. And one of the best parts is it becomes very, very hard for people to kind of pull the wool over your eyes ever again as a byproduct of this kinds of training. So this is a live video course that we created. It was filmed live. It's $1,497 value, and it's one of the most powerful approaches to being able to literally speed read another human being in as little as 90 seconds once you've been through the training. Total value is $1,497. Comes with a fully illustrated and fleshed out manual. And for those of you who want to take advantage of this, we're also going to throw in these special bonuses to round out your training. We're going to include the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course. This is a $1,497 value. When you use this in combination with face reading, you have a massive 1-2 punch. You get a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. It's going to teach you how to systematically unlock the power of the subconscious mind so you can literally hypnotize anyone, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstances. You'll be able to rapidly find and remove blocks and limiting beliefs, dissolve the hidden negativity that is holding you back, clear up issues that just don't seem to go away. It'll show you how to change the crappy voice inside of your head so that it's into one that builds you up and motivates you and inspires you and gives you approval, rather than the one that's always talking shit about you and trying to hold you back, right? If you're wondering what I mean by that, it's the voice in your head that just said what voice, right? It'll teach you how to install the traits, qualities, and characteristics of people you truly admire and desire to be like. It'll teach you instant rapid inductions, conversational hypnosis, how to do a 30-minute consultation that has a 99% chance of having that person eagerly, voluntarily signing up to become a client for you. So much more. It's also an introduction to a regressive technique called The Gift. Very powerful training. It's a 5-day training that we videotaped for you, giving it to you here. Total combined value, if you combine this with the face reading program that we just talked about, is $2,994, but we're not going to stop there. We're also going to include, because a lot of you are into energetics, a lot of you are into the Chinese 5 elements and various forms of pranic healing, Bengston, things of that nature. For those of you who want to take your skills and your understanding even deeper, we're going to include, as part of this program, our special vibrational healing, energy secrets, and remote influence home study course. This is a $1,497 value. We're going to give it to you absolutely free. This is going to teach you how to unlock the powers of your mind, body, and spirit, and control your energy, build it, and use it. You'll be able to channel it, focus it, harmonize with it, tune it to various things. You'll learn how to clean and balance chakras. You'll learn how to measure chakra size and depth, how to repair chakras. You'll learn how to influence and heal people at a distance, from across the room, from across the planet. In fact, our last vibrational healing class, Seth took a bunch of people out into the hallway and had them actually raising and lowering people's blood pressure, pulse rates, and body temperatures in after 20 seconds of teaching them. You need to understand Shendeshen transference or kinesthetic rapport to facilitate that level of influence. But once you understand how to do it, which is what you're taught in Identity by Design, you'll be able to do this very, very consistently. And we use actual machines to measure that. So you'll be able to clear up issues that just don't seem to go away. A lot of times the things that we carry are karmic. You learn how to tap into those levels of karmic vibrational containers that we talk about, and how to make them go away. You learn how to boost your intuitive and psychic abilities. You learn certain mudras and hand positions that allow you to amplify certain neurological pathways in your body that have a correspondence to certain abilities. You learn how to manifest things you want in the shortest amount of time possible, and absolutely protect yourself against psychic manipulation and psychic attack. If you really want to tap into your true power, your true potential as a spiritual being, you want to tap into the energetic sides of you, as well as the behavioral sides of you. This is one of the most powerful extensions of the face reading training that we can give you. Total value is $1,497. Combine that with everything that we've just explained to you. Total value, if you were to try to buy these on the website, and some of these you can't even buy, is $4,491. But wait, as the old commercial goes. There's more. There's a lot more to reading people than just their face. And so we've included a special bonus called People Reading for Fun and Profit Body Language Secrets Home Study Course. This is a $997 value. We're going to give it to you absolutely free. This is going to take your people reading skills to a whole different level, literally, because now we're going to talk about not just about facial expression. We're going to talk about body language, the study of kinesics. And we're going to understand that we're going to teach you the body language and expressions, body language of attraction, what that looks like, the 7 stages human beings go through when they're moving from stranger to intimacy, or what I lovingly call 1 + 1 = 3, and how that mating paradigm, or those body language positions from the mating paradigm, the attraction paradigm, actually become the avatar or the archetype of all other social interactions. We'll teach you how to detect lies and other forms of deceptive behaviors, the 15 most important techniques to look for in a simple, easy, user-friendly way. We'll teach you how to influence people dramatically without using your words, how to use state control, Shendeshen transference, or we call it in this particular class, kinesthetic rapport. Men, you'll learn to understand women better. Ladies, you'll learn to understand men better. You'll learn how to dress for success in ways that actually frame you the way you want to be framed, and position yourself in the minds of the people around you. We call it personal branding. And this is something that whenever we do it, people get so excited because it gives them the most important information they need to be perceived the way they want to be perceived. Right? We're going to show you systematically how to eliminate the behaviors that weaken your influence and amplify the ones that make you more charismatic, persuasive, influential, and authoritative. Okay, you'll automatically, and as a byproduct of this, you will automatically find yourself closing more deals, getting more dates, becoming a charismatic, magnetic human being, the life of the party. Again, when you start talking to people about themselves, you have their undivided attention. We're going to show you how to leverage that both verbally and non-verbally. It's a $997 value. You combine that for the total package value of $5,488. But as you can probably guess, we're not done yet. See, one of the biggest questions I get from people is, how do I catch liars? So I threw together this special crash course. This is called the Lie to Me If You Dare, How to Catch a Liar crash course. It's a $97 value. It's a 2 or 3 hour breakout that I did on the 15 most significant tells that people have that may indicate that they're lying. Remember that no single trait or behavioral characteristic, or as my friend Chase likes to call it, a data point a human being gives you is indicative of a lie. It's when you put them together in groups and clusters and that these things start to have meaning. We're going to teach you the foundations of lie detection, the 15 most significant tells, the various types of lies. They may fall into 3 different categories. And you'll be able to look at how everything the person is doing and understand it, how to understand men better, the particular characteristics and qualities that are specific to men, the specific qualities that may be more specific to women, how to eliminate behaviors that weaken your influence. And again, you can use this once again to close more deals, get more dates. And I think most importantly is once you understand how to catch liars and they understand you can catch them, the chances of you being manipulated again drop dramatically. So if you're interested in never being manipulated again, it might be a good time to grab this particular package. Total value is $5,585. So let's just review really quick what the package is and what to do next. So we're going to give you the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course. It's valued at $1,497. We're going to include absolutely free the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course, valued at $1,497. We're going to give it to you absolutely free. We're going to throw in the Vibrational Healing Energy and Remote Influence Home Study Course, once again, also absolutely free. We're going to throw in People Reading for Fun and Profit, the Body Language Secrets 2-day intensive video course, valued at $997. And then finally, to kind of put the cherry on the sundae, so to speak, we're going to throw in a very special crash course that we put together for you called Lie to Me If You Dare, How to Catch Liars crash course, absolutely free. Total combined value, if you were to go to the website and try and buy it today, which you can't, by the way, is $5,585. And everything that we're sharing with you today comes with a absolute 100% satisfaction guaranteed 60-day guarantee. Take this course, there's absolutely zero risk. Test it, put the material through its paces, read faces, get information from people. If after 60 days, you're not understanding people better, able to read their personality, character, and temperament instantly and be able to predict those behaviors, if you're not using these skills to attract more success, charisma, better qualities of relationships, if you're not actively moving towards manifesting the life of your dreams, feeling more confident, sort of more secure, confident, and powerful, if you're not winning the social encounters and developing that magnetism that you want so much, I'll refund your money. I have so much confidence in this program. I want you to try it, test it, put it through its paces. You don't have to believe a single thing I've taught you on this webinar for it to work for you. It is belief independent. What you do need to do is just go out and do it, right? Walk amongst human beings in their natural habitats and test this material for yourself. If it doesn't work, pick up the phone, give Stephanie a call at 858-282-4663 within 60 days, and we'll give you a full refund, right? We are going to ask you why you're refunding, but if you're not satisfied with the program, hey, if it's not working for you, we don't want your money, right? So you've absolutely nothing to risk and everything to gain by grabbing this particular program for yourself and test driving it for a full 60 days. Now, for those of you who might be on the fence, for those of you who are what I like to call first adopters, those who've been around for a while, all you got to do is go to www.davidsnydernlp.com/face, www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. And once again, that's www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. The link should be appearing in your chat box there. Yeah. And again, if you have questions, give Stephanie a call, 858-282-4663. Now, this always happens. Anytime we do a webinar, Stephanie gets inundated with phone calls, and that's okay. Many times when you call, you'll get the answering machine or the answering service, the voicemail. If you call and you leave your contact information, your name, your address, your email, your phone number, you will qualify for the bonuses and this offer. If you call and you get voicemail and you don't leave any information and you call back tomorrow or after the deadline, you will not qualify for this. So it's really, really important that when you call, that you leave your contact information if you get voicemail. If you don't, Stephanie will help work payment plans for you and give you all the information you need to get this locked in. Okay. So for those of you, oops, that's not what I wanted. Hold on a second. So for those of you in our YouTube channel, you can go to www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. That's www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. You can also call Stephanie 858-282-4663. Doesn't look like our stuff got posted in YouTube. Now, if that wasn't good enough, grab your course today, November 4th, 2021, before 11:59 p.m. or before I log off the webinar today, I should say. If you grab your course before you get on the webinar or log off the webinar, you'll get these fast action bonuses. You're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Group Archive. This is a 3-month trial membership. It's a $594 value. Actually, it's way more than that, but we're going to give this to you free. So let me explain this to you really, really quickly. One of the most important things about Planet David is our emphasis on hands-on training, about getting the right tools, the right crowd. The way the NLP Power Mastermind works, and we've been running this every week or every month nonstop since 2010. We're going on our 12th year or 11th year. We've been running this. And what it is on the third Saturday of every month, we get together and I literally go around the room and I say, Andy, what do you want to learn? Brandon, what do you want to learn? Holly, what do you want to learn? Allegra, what do you want to learn? Seth, what do you want to learn? And I literally write down what they want to learn on the board. I step back, I look at what everybody wants to learn. I see where they all connect. I create a curriculum right on the spot. And for the next 4 hours, I drill you on those specific skills until you can do them in your sleep. So if you want to get better at face reading, we'll work on face reading. You want to get better at conversational hypnosis, we'll work on conversational hypnosis. You want to work on energetics, regression, marketing, hypnotic presentation, whatever it is. If it's in my wheelhouse, you put it on. That's what we work on for the next 4 hours, right? Now, we have videotaped every single session since 2010. And we've archived those on the NLP Power website. Parts of it are on our YouTube members only channel. Parts of it are in our private Facebook group. During this 3-month trial membership, you get to come in, work right alongside everybody else and focus on the things that you want to learn about, get the skills, get the feedback, get everything you need, and make some really cool friends. You also get unfettered 24-hour-a-day access for the full 90 days that you're in the program to that entire 10-year archive. Anything you can think of, from energy to hypnosis to NLP to marketing to seduction to attraction to face reading, remote influence, you name it, it's in there. You can binge watch this stuff. 99% of it has never been seen the light of day on YouTube or Instagram or any of our other channels. It's completely private. You get the entire 11-year archive. You can look at it and binge watch it to your heart's content. So what is Stephanie's number? Dr. Snyder's, okay, it's 858. Hold on a second. 858-282-4663. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it. 4663. So again, if you like the program and you find value in it, then we'll show you how to extend your membership. But you get to come in for 90 days, and the third Saturday every month, you get to tell me exactly what you want to learn. And with the rest of the group, you have to roll up your sleeves, you do the drills and get the skills. That by itself is worth well over $594, because not only do you get access to all of those videos, you get to actually practice. You get to talk to me. You get to ask me questions. You get the live feedback that you need to get awesome at this stuff. Then you go out into the world and you apply what you've learned. You will not get a certificate from the NLP Power Mastermind. What you will get is a skill set that you can actually put to work, that you can actually go out into the world and make changes with. Okay? Is that a good deal? Would that be something you'd like to do? And go ahead and type that in the chat if it's something you'd like to do, right? Sure, it's absolutely free when you grab this particular face reading program, okay? Total combined value so far, if you add everything up, is $6,179, but because these are fast action bonuses and I like to do things in a set number, we're also going to throw in face reading for fun and profit level 2. This is the second level of the face reading program, where we take you through the rest of the features of the face, how to combine them, what they mean, how to interpret personality, character, and temperament, how people deal with risk, how people how suggestible someone is, how bossy someone is, things of this nature. It picks up where level 1 left off, and it gives you the full story. Many people say that once they've had level 2, everything that they learned in level 1 takes on even more significance, more dimension. The emphasis in these 2 courses is on personality, character, and temperament. But we'll also be talking about an introduction to trauma history, emotional history, things of that nature. We may even touch, I think we even touched a little bit on the what they call the prognosticative or the fortune telling aspects of it in this one. So this is a really good next step in terms of your face reading training. It's a $1,497 value. We're going to give it to you absolutely free. Again, if you're any kind of influence professional, whether you're a therapist, a coach, salesperson, and we've never actually, I don't think we've actually released this prior to this webinar. So finally, this next one is only for the next 25 people to register today. Remember, I'm a big proponent of just rolling up your sleeves, doing the drills, getting the skills. When people come to me and they say, David, I've looked at your catalog, I've looked at the videos and the courses for sale on your website. I noticed that a lot of your price points for the live events versus the video events are pretty close. I'm curious, which is better for me? Should I come to the live event or should I buy the videos? And without hesitation, I always tell people, come to the live event. Use the video as a supplement. Why? Because in that live event, I can give you feedback. I can observe what you do. I can talk to you. I can interact with you. I can create drills for you on the spot. You get to interact with lots of other people, all doing the same things and getting that real world feedback that you need so much. Then when you go back and you watch those videos, you see things you didn't see before. You see them through enlightened eyes, so to speak. Now, in the case where you can't get to a live event, video is a great second choice, right? And if you combine that with the NLP Power Mastermind, you now have the ability to watch the videos, learn from them, and ask your questions during the mastermind and actually get a certain degree of hands-on. For the first 25 people to register for this program today, I'm going to include, absolutely free of charge, a face reading for fun and profit 3-day virtual certification boot camp. This is a super VIP ticket. Now, what does that mean? We're offering this to you as a way to get online with me for 3 days and go through the entire face reading level 1 curriculum, getting drills, breaking out into groups, learning how to profile people completely in as little as 90 seconds. And we'll actually test you on that. It's going to be February 20, I'm sorry, I don't have the dates, February 25th through the 27th. You might want to write that down. February 25th, 26th, and 27th. It is a virtual training. There's no travel involved. You do have to be live and in person virtually for this. If you've already had face reading and you don't want to do the face reading virtual certification, you can convert that to what we call a VIP super ticket, which allows you admission to any single live event in our 2021 or 2022 calendar. Again, if you go to davidsnyder.nlp.com/events, you'll see a listing of all the events we have coming up through 2021 and the rest of 2022. This is a $1,950 value, but we're also going to give you, as a byproduct or as an extra bonus, when you come to the 3-day first face reading virtual certification, we're going to give you the Zoom copy of your videos. It's a $1,497 value, absolutely free. It's a typo. It's a 3-day event, not a 4-day. And if you've already had face reading and you don't want to take it again, you can use that VIP ticket towards any single live event coming up in our 2021 or 2022 calendar. Okay. Total combined value for this is, with everything else we talked about, is $3,447. It's yours absolutely free. All you got to do to get yours is go to www.davidsnyder.nlp.com/face. And again, this course will teach you how to instantly read people's personalities, understand how they think, feel, and behave, measure their sexual romantic compatibility, what kind of jobs they're going to be right for, their current state of physical, mental health, or emotional health, how to uncover and resolve forgotten traumas, resolve relationship issues with their parents and their siblings, know how they make decisions, and so much more. This is a very, very powerful class. It has completely changed the course of my life and the way that I teach, and it has changed the lives of my students. For you face readers out there, if you have a significant experience that was derived as a direct result of face reading, type that in the chat so people understand just how powerful this opportunity is for them. Again, it's yours absolutely free when you take advantage. One of the next 25 people to take advantage of this particular face reading program before I log off the webinar. Okay, total value combined is $11,123, right? So once again, today's special offer, Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. The Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you. Absolutely free. Vibrational Healing, Energy Healing, Remote Influence free. I think I misspoke the first thing. Secrets of Face Reading is $1,497 value. It's not free, but that's the course. We're going to give you the People Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Course, absolutely free. The Lie to Me If You Dare, How to Catch Liars Home Study Course. Plus, you'll get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Group Trial Program valued at $594. We're going to give that to you free. The Face Reading Level 2 pre-release version, $1,497. And of course, the free VIP Super Ticket or Face Reading Virtual Intensive valued at $3,447. This offer expires November 4th, 2021. When I log off the webinar, that VIP ticket goes away. All the fast action bonuses do, so you want to grab that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to charge you $11,123. In fact, I'm not even going to charge you $6,167 at all. I'm not going to charge you $2,697. You can get all of this today for the one low installment of just $997. And if you want to, you can break that up into 3 easy payments of just $397 each. Okay, so let me kind of, I can see now why I need to tweak this PowerPoint a little bit, but that's all right. Today only, you can get it all for one low installment of just $997, or you can break it up into 3 installments of just $397 each. If you want to take advantage of the payment plan, you need to reach out to Stephanie at 858-282-4663. That's 858-282-4663. All you gotta do is go to www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. And once again, here's a little synopsis. All you got to do to get yours is go to davidsnyder.nlp.com/face, and you get it all for one loan installment of just $9.97, or you can do 3 installments of $3.97 each. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let you guys kind of take care of that. We're going to take a 7-minute break while I run to the potty, so you guys can all run to the potty. When I come back, we're going to pick up with the emotional map of the face, and we're going to circle back and we're going to do some Q&A, and you can ask me about face reading and how we can apply it, facial characteristics, things of that nature, and that's what we'll do. So go ahead and reach out to Stephanie at 858-282-4663, or just click the link at 858. www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. That's www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. And I will see you in 7 minutes. Yeah, I'm back from my break early, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat, and I'm happy to answer those. Don't be bashful. Dark areas around the eyes are almost always, Stephen User is asking, what about dark areas around the eyes? Dark areas around the eyes almost always indicate adrenal fatigue or tired kidneys. So if you've been working a lot, if you've been overusing your kidney energy, being too willful, being too fearful, these things will tax the energy of the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and you'll start to develop purple bags or dark areas around the eyes. So Bob Poddock's asking, people with Marfan syndrome can have large foreheads. How does that translate to reading the data section of the head? It's a really good question. I'm not familiar with the symptomology of Marfan syndrome. I would have to see. I could extrapolate that they might be a little bit more on the Asperger spectrum, maybe a little bit more. Again, I'm more on the abstract. But I'd have to see it, because I'll be honest, I'm not really that familiar with Marfan's. Mandar says, thank you, that was useful. Yeah, I'd like to know more about uncovering hidden traumas. Excellent. Great question. Again, we can start with the emotional markings, which we're going to get back to in about a minute. Because most of these markings, if you see them in a sky, if you see them marking very, very deeply on a person's face, they're almost always related to a trauma. We're gonna have to, and we're gonna have to actually discuss a little bit. We're gonna have to discuss a little bit how do we define traumas? And this is important to understand, is that trauma can come into, so Matt's asking, the Chinese 5 elements, how useful are they for understanding people? They're very useful if you take them in context. Okay. In fact, I'll remind me towards the end of the webinar, and I will show you a little chart I put together that kind of, I think it really demystifies Chinese 5 elements in terms of behavior, character readings, and temperament. But in terms of going back to Sky's question about trauma, anytime you see these deep lines marking, it's some form of trauma. Now, whether that trauma happened as a byproduct of one significant event that got stuck or frozen, or it's the accumulation of multiple smaller traumas that kind of build up over time, that area will mark deeper. The deeper the trauma, the deeper the line. The older the trauma, the deeper the line. The longer it is, the more intense it is. The deeper it is, the older it tends to be. The more the traumas start to migrate down the face, the longer you've had them. So a trauma that's here may be very, very, very new relative to one that's here. Okay, you can always see trauma markings because they're either a horizontal or a vertical, a horizontal or a vertical line. Emotional markings tend to be diagonals, and you'll see that when we go back to the emotional map. You'll see that the vast majority of these emotion lines are diagonals. Whereas when you look at the Jing level, which is the physical constitution, the trauma history, lifestyle that these people have, when you drain your Jing, you mark differently from a Jing injury, an injury to your fundamental material foundation, than you do to your emotional body. And so I'll go over kind of the difference between those, if that helps. Does that help, Sky? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to our map. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. So we've pretty much covered this half of the face and this, right? Our next segment is the rest of this, as Andy Rooney would say, the rest of the story. Okay, so our next marking that we're going to look at is actually a lot of people would consider this a very good marking to have. These are called purpose lines. You tend to see these markings in people who are on or fulfilling their spiritual mission. These particular markings start at the border of the nostril. So let me show you this really quick on me. I'll use this card. Okay, so if you look at the border of the nose, so this starts right at the border of the nose and travels down this way, right? So when you see this line, it's showing that somebody who is fulfilling their mission in this life. They're doing the things that they took on a body to do. Okay. So the deeper these lines are, the better off you are. Now, the Chinese like to say if you hit your 40s and you don't have these lines, something's wrong. Okay, you're not on mission, so to speak. You're not living the life you came here to live. So just like your lost love lines, a lack of these lines can demonstrate that you're not doing the things that are lifting up your spirit, bringing more spirit into your body. But most of us will have these by the time we're in our 40s, right? Now, what's interesting is when you start doing a face reading with someone, especially like on a Ming reading, which is a golden path, and they get clear on what their golden path is, or you'll see these lines start to form. It's really cool. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, right? So let these lines be your guide, right? If you've got these lines, now also when you look at the face, are they deeper and longer on the private side or on the public side, right? And that will tell you where you're more on track in your public life or in your private. Ideally, we want them to be balanced, but not everybody's balanced. Okay. What about the opposite of pessimism life that make people look like a Cheshire cat? I've never seen you mention them. I've never seen them. You may see people who have an upturn to their mouth will tend to be a little bit more on the optimistic side. They will tend to be a little bit more, I don't want to say Pollyannish, because that's more an openness of the eyes, but you'll see a little bit more of that optimistic side in the corners of the mouth. People who have a downturned corner of the mouth, it's not that they're necessarily pessimistic. It's more like they know the world can suck, right? They know there's a lot of crap and misery in the world, and they tend to be very sensitive to the suffering of other people. So much so, in fact, that a lot of times people with this downturn to their mouth, which should not be confused with a disappointment line, by the way. Disappointment line is a wrinkle. A downturned mouth means the corner of the mouth actually kind of turns down a little bit. People with this kind of marking tend to be the proverbial good Samaritan. Unfortunately, because they tend to be the proverbial good Samaritan, they can tend to fall prey to people who can tell a good sob story. So they tend to be a little bit more, I don't want to say gullible, but they're more likely to help somebody who can tell a good, can express how miserable they are. That makes any kind of sense. So yeah, let's go back to this facial marking here. So this means you're living your purpose. It means you're doing what you came here to do. We want these markings. These are, ladies, I know aesthetically maybe you don't want them, but from the Chinese perspective, these are good lines to have, right? Now, some of you, if you look at your head from the side, you may notice right in front of your ears are these little lines. And let me go to a different picture and show you this. Now, we're not talking about age markings yet, but these are maps of the ears. Male, when we look at the chronology, this is something you would learn in the Jing or lifestyle constitution module. It's not what we're talking about today, but people's gestation tends to start, for men, it starts on the left side from age 0 to 7. And then it picks up on the right ear from ages 9 to 14. Then it picks up on the head. Women are the opposite. Women start on the left, and then they go to the right. Now, again, we're not talking about age markings, but we are talking about little wrinkles in the front of the ear. So what I'm talking about is if you look at your ear and you notice like little, almost like gill lines, little wrinkles here. Okay. You usually have 2 or 3 of them. What you're looking at is something the Chinese call auditory intuition. And auditory intuition is really, really interesting because it actually starts out as a defense mechanism. It's a form of auditory hypervigilance. And what that means is people with these markings almost always grew up in a household or an environment where they had to constantly be listening to what was being said around them. and kind of read between the lines, the subtext, the tonality, and kind of infer what was safe to say, what was not safe to say. So these people are always kind of walking on eggshells when they were very young, trying to figure out, is mom or dad in a bad mood? Is Aunt or Uncle Joe, drunk or whatever, by how they spoke. So this starts as a form of self-defense. And over time, it becomes a very, very powerful bullshit detector in people. People with this line tend to be really, really good at reading people's voices, their tonality, their tempo. They can tell lies much more adroitly and adeptly than people who don't have them in general. But it starts off, and it becomes a superpower later on, but it really starts out as a form of self-defense or auditory hypervigilance. Now, physiologically, there's some ramifications to this. These particular markings reside on what is commonly referred to in Chinese medicine as the triple warmer meridian. The triple warmer meridian, in conjunction with the liver meridian, is the stress management and water metabolism meridian. The triple warmer corresponds, in some cases, to the thyroid, which controls water and governs water metabolism in the body. So many times when you have these lines, you may have a tendency physiologically towards dehydration. And while that on the surface may not seem like a big deal, people who have a tendency towards dehydration tend to drink a lot, obviously. What happens, though, is when you drink a lot, you pee a lot. When you pee a lot, you flush out of your body electrolytes, because most people don't replenish their electrolytes when they drink water, right? And so what happens as a ramification of drinking so much water and get rid of so much fluid, you start to develop heart palpitations and what we think of as anxiety attacks or panic attacks, because our heart's like suffering from a lack of electrolytes. So if you have these markings and you find yourself having heart palpitations or tachycardia from time to time, and you think you're having panic attacks, one of the things, after you get checked out by a doctor, of course, got to cover my ass, right? You might want to test is supplementing with electrolytes to see if the palpitations that you have are actually due to a lack of electrolytes, right? I found a lot of people go, oh my God, that changed everything for me, because you think you're like something's broken because you have these irregular heartbeats or these palpitations or tachycardia, and it turns out you're just short on electrolytes. So if you have these markings and you do suffer from time to time with what you think is a panic attack or palpitations, try supplementing with more electrolytes and see what happens, right? And let me know what you discover. Okay. Another really interesting marking that can go towards people's faces is on the ear itself. So going back to this ear map, if you look at a person's ear and you see little lines, little wrinkles here, what you're seeing are what we call blood pressure irregularities. Now, this does not mean if you have these markings that you're going to die of a heart attack. Okay. And it doesn't mean you have high blood pressure. It doesn't mean you have low blood pressure. What it tends to mean is that you have erratic blood pressure. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low, right? People with this kind of marking also tend to be hyper-responsive to shock. What do I mean by that? It means that if you have these markings, let's say you're walking down a hallway, right, and somebody jumps out at you, right, and the level of surprise or shock a person might experience on average is like a 6 or 7, right? You might experience an 8 or 9 because your body overreacts. Your body overreacts to the stimulus, right? So if you have these, and I have both. I have both the auditory intuition lines, and I also have the blood pressure irregularity lines. Doesn't mean you're going to die tomorrow. Doesn't mean you're going to have a heart attack. It means you should probably spend a little bit more time paying attention to your cardiovascular health. You should spend a bit more time in meditation and mindfulness so that you can kind of get your baselines a bit lower, so that you can respond to shock and surprise a little bit more appropriately, right? So again, I see this a lot. Okay, if you have a poor diet and you have these markings, you really need to pay attention, right? Because that irregular blood pressure can really wreak havoc on you. Okay. This is one I don't see as often as you might think, but it's something you should be aware of. Again, starting at the outer canthus, these are lines that travel in a diagonal from the outer canthus towards the bridge of the nose. And we call these pain lines. Now, pain can be acute or it can be chronic. It could be something that they've had long term, or it can be just, you know, they tweak their back and they're just walking around. Every time they walk, they feel a twinge. Okay, but these lines start at the outer canthus and they migrate along the undersurface of the eye towards the bridge of the nose. And of course, we talked about mania lines. If you see these people tend to be a little bit on the borderline spectrum. They may be bipolar. They could just be manic, right? They could be psychotic, or on some stimulus. But when you see these lines, these are people who are a bomb waiting to go off, right? They'll be up at 2 o'clock in the morning tweeting. They'll tend to have a grandiose sense of self. They may be hypersexual. Again, any of the symptoms of mania, you may see these lines that start at the outer canthus and migrate up. Okay. Questions on these markings so far? No? Okay, we'll keep going. Again, before I go, those of you who are asking, just to reiterate, our face reading webinar package expires tonight at 11:59 p.m. And you get your face reading for fun and profit home study course valued at $1,497. And you also get the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy home study course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. We're going to give you the vibrational healing, remote influence and energy healing made easy home study course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you free. We're going to give you the People Reading for Fun and Profit Body Language Secrets home study course, $997 value. The Lie to Me If You Dare How to Catch a Liar crash course valued at $97. And for those of you among the first 25 to sign up tonight, you're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Group Practice Trial valued at $594. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, the pre-release version, $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you free. And you're going to get that free VIP super ticket for face reading 3-day virtual intensive. Or if you prefer, you can convert that to a super ticket that gets you into any single one of our live events in our 2021 or 2022 calendar. The $3,447 value. Total value for the program is $11,123. You can get it all for one low installment of just $997, or you can break that up into 3 easy payments of just $397. And all you got to do to collect yours is go to www.davidsnydernlp.com/face. davidsnydernlp.com/face. And I want to just I want to look at our YouTubers here really quick because they got a lot of cool questions. Well, these are all good questions. I gotta circle back to my YouTubers shortly. Anyway, you can reach out to Stephanie and get that. Let's go back to our emotions. So the next line I want to talk about is a transformation line. Now, transformation lines are diagonal lines, and these often manifest after you've gone through what we call a long, dark night of the soul. So what that means is, maybe you've gone through a time in your life where you just had to work hard and you had to do a lot of soul searching and you had to dig deep just to get through it. And when you came out on the other side of it, you came out of it with a new understanding of yourself or some aspect of yourself that you couldn't have had any other way, that kind of resulted in a spiritual epiphany. When you have those long, dark nights of the soul and you have those awakenings, you will tend to mark with diagonal lines that kind of emanate up from the third eye area at a diagonal, right? If you lead a very spiritual life, a lot of meditative work, a lot of introspective work, and you start to achieve varying degrees of enlightenment, you may start to develop what is commonly referred to as Buddha wings. Buddha wings are like little curved lines that emanate up from the third eye. If you look at the Dalai Lama when he's teaching, he tends to show these lines. So you see these a lot in high-level Buddhist monks, meditators, people who are really moving in terms of their spiritual evolution and growth. People who just go through long, dark nights of the soul and have some spiritual awakening, gives them a deeper aspect of themselves. They'll mark with a diagonal line. People who are getting ongoing spiritual work, they have Buddha wings. So almost like wings that come up from the third eye level. Now, the next couple lines we want to talk about, I see these so much, and these are really, really, really important, okay? When we look at people's foreheads, and especially the area between their eyebrows, here, this area is commonly referred to as Father's Blessing area, or the seat of the stamp. Not eat of the stamp, seat of the stamp. And one of the reasons that they call it this was because this is the area where a lot of your psychic abilities or your intuitive perception comes in. But this is also an area that marks very, very strongly based on the influences you had from the dominant masculine caregivers in your life, the people who you idolized, the people who played that parental role for you. When you see two lines here, this is somebody who is demonstrating a high level of irritation, annoyance, or impatience. These things, the mark. These are people who tend to get angry easy. They tend to be very frustrated. They don't like, they come to a red light and the light turns yellow and, they're gunning the engine or whatever. If you see a single line, and this is where we get into, for Sky's benefit and for other people who are actually interested in trauma work or things of that nature, we talk about Jing blockages. Sometimes when you look at a person's face, you will see one thick line or one line going right down the middle. In Chinese face reading, we call this particular marking a suspended needle. If it's really big, we might call it suspended dagger or sword. Now, the reason this marking comes about is usually due to repressed anger. I need to explain this. Usually towards the dominant masculine energy in the family. Now, I do need to explain this, okay? So when you see someone with a marking right here, what has happened in their life is that at some point in their life, they got really mad, like really mad, and they acted out. They acted on that anger. And for whatever reason, when they acted out that anger, they got severely punished for it. You could say this was a form of trauma. They got punished so severely that in their mind, at the unconscious level, they made an active, deliberate decision to never express that level of energy ever again. Okay, this is a very strong wood or liver associated area. So when we express anger, it tends to pop here. When you see this line, you're looking at someone who's literally taken, if this is the sum total of their achieving energy, right? They've literally taken a metallic block and cut it in half. And it's usually derived as some interaction between a masculine energy, the dominant yang energy in a person's life. So it's usually father-son, son-father can go either way. If it's an organization, it could be towards the executive aspect of that organization. But basically what this tells you is that at some point in that person's life, they expressed their anger and they got punished for it. And they made a decision to never let that express that level of energy again. Now, on one level, that sounds perfectly okay. You expressed your anger, you got mad, you crossed a boundary, not going to do that anymore. But here's the thing you need to understand. The liver energy of the body, the wood element of the body, is the achievement energy of the body. So if you have a marking here, you have a vast reservoir of achievement energy that you are refusing to express. This will almost always manifest in some form of self-sabotage, an inability to move beyond a certain point of achievement in your life. So unless you go back and you clear up the energy behind that marking, you will find yourself blowing you will get to a certain level of success, and you will either stop dead, you won't be able to get any further, or you will get to a certain level and you will get knocked back to square one. Or like one of my old colleagues he used to brag that he's had 25 different careers, because he never saw it this way or as an aspect of this marking, but he had a massive one. He would get to a certain degree of achievement or attainment, and then he would blow himself up. He would literally change careers or sabotage the relationships with the people he worked with, and he would have to leave that job. Okay. So if you have this marking, and the deeper it is and the longer it is, the more energy you have that you're not using. And it will come back to bite you at some point in your life. It will manifest as an inability to move forward. Now, if you know the transformational triad, color breathing, magic frame, energy spinning, somatic search engine concept, you can blast these things. You can get rid of them, right? If you understand classical face reading and reframing, you can reframe it and have them resolve that anger towards that member of the opposite sex, and it'll go away, right? It'll start to fade. But if you don't, you will consistently self-sabotage, right? Now, every now and then you're going to see someone with a marking that looks like this. When you see someone with 3 lines like this, what you're seeing is somebody who has come to terms with their anger or impatience and can now manage it. Okay. So if you see 3 lines, this person may still have bouts of temper, but they manage it much, much better than someone who just has 2 lines. Right? So again, in this case, 3 is better than 2. Now, the next line I want to talk to you about also manifests as a result of anger or trauma. This line is called a disempowerment line. I don't like to use the word disempowerment because I don't think it accurately describes this quality of this characteristic. So the term I like to use rather than disempowerment is what I call appeasement. And the reason for that is because that's the behavior this marking indicates. So going back to these 2 markings, the suspended needle and sword, right? So the suspended needle is that single line, which is a result of anger expressed and punished. So let me expressed and punished. Okay. The disempowerment or appeasement line manifests when somebody violates your boundary. They violate your boundary and you try to stand up for yourself, right? In other words, someone's coming towards you, you say, don't do that. You're not allowed to do that. That's not okay. Get back, and they push back harder. In other words, someone tries to encroach on your boundary, you push back, they push back even harder, and rather than fight back harder, you say, okay, I'll do what you want. Just make it stop. Okay, I'll do whatever you want. Anything to keep the peace. Okay, I don't want any trouble. Instead of locking down your energy, you actually flip it, and and again, you see this more in women than you do men. There's a tendency for females to do what they call tend and befriend. When they can't effectively guard or push back on their boundaries, they will lapse into caregiving or appeasement types behaviors. Now, for those of you who see clients and you got somebody who's coming in with a lot of repressed issues, like a lot of trauma, if you see these lines on the face, and the lines start at they don't really start at the inner or outer canthus like our lost love lines do. These are lines that literally, it's like somebody took an X-Acto or a razor blade and they etched lines in the side of the nose that move towards the tip, right? You see these lines, there's almost always a history of some kind of abuse or appeasement going on below the threshold. These are people who tend to have very permeable boundaries. They will tend to put up token resistance, right? Because at the point, at the time that these things happened, they didn't have the ability to fight back, or they lacked the courage to fight back effectively, and so they flipped. They went into appeasement mode as an alternative to fight, flight, or freeze, right? In our attraction mastery course and in Soulmate Secrets, and to some degree in Defense Against the Dark Arts, we talk about the fourth F, which is befriend, or so when people are in trouble, they say that you can either fight, you can fight, or you can freeze. There's another one that is less talked about, which is acquiesce. In other words, they tend to befriend. I can't really, I tried to put it to 4 Fs, but people will automatically become compliant out of fear rather than the other 3 Fs, right? And so you got to be very careful, because a lot of times when there's a history of that, domestic abuse, childhood issues, you'll see these markings along the bridge of the nose. Okay. Some other markings you might be interested in looking at or paying attention to. Well, those are good enough. So let's go ahead and open it up to questions. And I'll take, again, we'll kind of unpack more things about the face and stuff. Let me go to my YouTubers really quick here. See if there's anything interesting. Okay, there's a lot. I don't see a lot of questions, so I'll go back to our Zoom room. Any questions? Where are my chatsters here? Hold on a second. All right. What if you have no line between the eyebrows? Well, if you have no line between the eyebrows, Cami, it's usually an indication that you're pretty clear there. In fact, the more space you have between the eyebrows, you start to exhibit what we call Father's Blessing. And Father's Blessing is a marking that demonstrates that people have learned how to get along in groups, how to navigate the corporate structure or the corporate hierarchy. Whereas people who have a closer eyebrow, these people are a lot more impatient with the status quo. They're looking to climb the social or corporate ladder as rapidly as possible, and they tend not to care quite as much what the protocols are, what the etiquette is, or who they have to step on to get there. So that's why they call that Father's Blessing, because people who have a nice wide area between the eyebrows, also the third eye can be open as well. These people tend to be do much better in corporations and large organizations. Let's see here. Who's this? Matthew says, I always look more attractive listening to this. Yes, I always look more attractive listening to the letters. What you'll find a lot of times, and that's why we always take at the beginning of a face reading class, we take before and after pictures. We take a picture of you before the face reading class starts, and then we take one at the end and we have them compare. What we actually encourage our people to do is take a picture of their face every day of the class and notice how this changes. Okay. Energy block line is incredibly important to deal with, and I'm trying very hard not to sabotage myself. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see here. Okay. What other questions do you have? When would now be a good time to ask? All right. What are 5 vertical lines? I have no idea. I've never seen 5 vertical lines. What I have seen a lot of times is people who have these very deep, like almost like trenches in their face. And I wanted to ask Lillian, but I never got the chance, what that actually means. When you see those kinds of lines, if they're really, really deep, I almost guess that this person went through a very, very intense, dark emotional period and came out of it on the other end. Lost love lines. Can that energy be put into other things, or it's simply for the lost thing? You know, it's a really good question. I think if you can find an alternative behavior that lights you up and you're actively seeking to replace that thing, I think it can make it go away. But you can also resolve it through the therapeutic work that we do, right? You should still endeavor to whatever degree you can to get that thing back. Unless there's some kind of physical injury present that prevents you from doing something, there's almost always a way to recover that. And chances are, and again, getting a little bit more woo-woo, a little bit more metaphysical, if you do have an accident, there's almost always some other lesson you're meant to derive from processing that lost love out. Spinning is good for anger. What about freckles and blemishes? Freckles is a rule indicate the presence of a higher degree of fire element. The blemish, if it's well formed, is usually just a healthy marking. If it's irregularly formed, the borders aren't real clear, it could be the sign of some kind of a lesion or a tumor, cyst of some kind. Okay, we already talked about two vertical lines between the eyes. Let's see here. Mujaba says, I think those are skin issues and not very representative of underlying traits. I'd have to go back. If you could repost the question, I might be able to answer that better for you. What do the diagonal lines between the eyes on the eyebrow mean? I'd have to see it. I mean, are you talking about the lines on towards the lateral half? Barbara? No. Okay. Are you talking? I'm not sure what we're talking about. Diagonal lines between the eyes on the eyebrow. I'd have to see it. Are they scars or are they wrinkles? Okay. Wrinkles. Okay. Generally speaking, if they're wrinkles, it's usually indicative of an event that is going to happen or did happen at around the age of, I believe it's 30-ish. I mean, if I look at let me go to my age map real quick. So if you look at the age map here, so if you were seeing wrinkles in this area, okay, if they're past the age of 30, ask if something happened at or around that particular age. If they haven't reached that age yet, chances are it's a generational trauma or a generational event, and it's going to happen at or around that age. Okay, and this is scarily accurate, by the way, right? So if I see a marking here, and the person's in their 50s, I'm going to ask, what was going on around the age of 30? What happened in your life? Right? And chances are there's usually a car accident or an emotional trauma or something that correlates within a year of this. The Chinese actually add, for Chinese years, you actually add a year. For European years, you subtract a year, because the Chinese figured that it counted the time in the womb as most important process. So I hope that helps. Let's see what else we got here. For the vertical angular lines of the forehead, what if you have more of those in the actual brow? Again, if they're in the brow, I'm going back to what I just said earlier, that there are probably events that happen to you that you need to process out that happened at about that time of your life. If you haven't reached that level, that time in your life yet, it's indicative of some kind of event that if you don't clear it, you're going to have to deal with at that point. The nice thing about, because the body is a hologram, these markings can change as our consciousness changes and our way we process information changes. Again, it gets kind of woo, but if you look at quantum physics, that's what they're telling us. Every human being do is vibration, vibrational density, and refracted energies, right? So as you change the refractive angle of your vibrations, how you look will change as well. Okay. Oh shit. Yeah, start doing that cleanup now. I would unpack and attack that. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you're in your early 20s, right? But you have a marking that's in your 30s. If you go back and you apply your somatic search engine concepts, right? Unconscious mind always answers first, always answers honestly, always feels like you're making it up, always have an urge to edit what just came up, right? Never loud, never linear. If you understand that, and you go to somatic search engine and you ask a question like, there's a marking that I have, a marking that has everything to do with something that's going to happen to me at the age of 30 or 30-ish. First impression, there's a reason that feeling exists in my body, a reason that marking exists in my body. Where in my body might the reason I have this marking be stored? First impression, point to where you feel it, reach out and touch it, start unpacking it, right? If you can find the services of an actual trained face reader who also has identity by design techniques, it's even easier because they can guide you through the process. But again, if you can see it and you can point to it, you ask the right question, you can change it. So as an alchemical tool, a way of personal exploration and self-discovery, everything that we teach in Identity by Design combined with face reading gives you some very powerful, very effective real-world tools for unpacking your emotional baggage, the stuff you didn't even consciously know that you had, and resolving it. Right? If you want to understand purple personality behavior, tap into people's secret hot buttons from across the room without having to interact with them. You can just look at their face, know if they're data driven, know if they're gut driven, know if they're pragmatic, right? Know if how they respond to authority. People with very big brow bones, very thick, bushy eyes do not do well in the presence of authority. They're very reactant people. People with very strong cheekbones are going to tend to be on the bossy side. They're going to be very, very picky in the aesthetics of the environment that they're in. People with very strong jawlines are going to stand up for what they believe is right. You start combining these traits and you start to extrapolate a profile that allows you to understand who you're dealing with, right? In addition to the emotions, right? Let's see here, what else we got? Okay. All right. Anybody have any more questions, or you guys, what else do you guys want to know about? Oh, you guys want to know about compatibility, didn't you? Right. So how does this actually work? Well, first and foremost, you need to understand there's always a challenge between nature versus nurture, and opposites attract versus like attracts like. Well, it's funny you should ask that, Matthew. I left a question behind. Are there any techniques to make the face symmetrical? Yes. Unpack your shit. Clear up your emotions. As you start to get on your golden path, as you start to balance your mental components, which means balancing your anger, your fear, your sadness, your joys, your lost loves, as you start to express the elements you're deficient in, as your emotional makeup changes, the physiological characteristics will change as well. It's crazy when this happens. I've literally done sessions with people where they spent their entire life being repressed by their family. And as we go through the process, in the 90-minute session, we go through the process of clearing up all the crap that they put up with as kids. Halfway through the session, their fucking eyebrow bones just pop out like a turkey baster, like a turkey that's done. It just boom. All of a sudden, at the beginning of the training, they had very bushy eyebrows, but no brow bone. Halfway through the training, they've got a big brow bone sticking out. Right? It's very, very weird. And again, the first time Lillian said this, I called bullshit on a quantum level. And then I actually did a face reading on the first face reading class, and it was literally a before and after picture. They had different faces. Like the faces were different. They put them side by side, and it's like within 90 minutes of each other, same light, same wall, boom. right? But if you want your face to become more symmetrical, more towards what the Chinese call, or the Taoists call your original face, then you want to balance your elements. You want to get on your golden path. You want to clear up your emotional baggage and amplify the behavioral traits and the perspectives and the attitudes that go with it that foster, again, if your energies are symmetrical, your face will be more symmetrical, right? That's the long and short of it. So, but here's the thing, whether you think of this as woo or not, I just want to share something with you really, really quick, because again, and this goes back to Matthew's question about balancing the 5 elements, some questions about compatibility, things of that nature. I spent a lot of time corroborating and cross-referencing different systems to find the patterns where they connect, where they agree with each other. And I use that as the basis of my systems, okay? So Matthew says, my jaw is filled out and I have the feeling that using the energy of behavioral traits with yes. You can grow a jaw, you can grow a chin, you can grow brow bones, right? Your face very, very much changed. You want to see faces change? Look at a person's face when they first go into boot camp, when they first join the Army, and when they come back from boot, and when they get out of the Army, and notice the differences in the facial architecture, right? You will see dramatic differences because of the effective environment, which brings us back to, which is more important, nature versus nurture? The answer is yes. The new studies say it's about 50-50. 50% of what your personality, character, and temperament comes from your biology. The other 50% comes from your environment. So, and when we look at the hormonal studies, we find this to be true too. So here's the secret. Certain facial, now if the more facial characteristics, this is classical face reading, okay? As opposed to modern face reading. The more facial traits or attributes you have in common with someone, the more sexually or romantically compatible you'll tend to be. So if you have very big, prominent eyebrow bones and your partner has very prominent brow bones, you'll tend to get along better. If you have a nose that's very, very similar in size and shape, you'll tend to be more in alignment with them, right? Now, the question becomes, well, how do we find the optimal match, right? Certain personality types, which are equivalent to certain elemental types, work best with people who are like themselves. Certain elemental types, this is modern face reading now, this is David's approach. Certain personality types are going to do better with complementary personality types. So let's say, for example, you have someone who is strong in the fire element, okay? Fire element people tend to do better with fire element people. Whereas people who are more woody, I guess you could say, tend to do better with people who are more watery or more earthy, actually more watery, actually. And so how does that actually work? How does that even correlate? Here's what we've discovered. Based on the work of Dr. Helen Fisher, who was the lead researcher for Match.com and Chemistry.com, Dr. Fisher developed the only personality assessment tool based on the predominance and ratios of hormonal pathways to one another. Okay, air people tend to be metallic; they tend to be a little bit more picky. And I'm gonna show you how it all correlates. Okay, I'll just finish up with this, right? And again, in our face reading trainings that coming up in February, we'll go over this a little bit more in depth. But this is the chart I came up with. So for those of you who want to make the big leap between body chemistry, facial characteristics, yin and yang, Chinese 5-element theory, and Greek personality types. You guys remember the Greek personality types from Hippocrates? Sanguine, choleric, melancholic, phlegmatic. Direct correlation across the board if you start with the foundation of hormonal pathways. And Dr. Fisher, in her study, in her book, Why Him, Why Her, she devotes 2 pages to the facial characteristics relevant to certain dominance of hormonal pathways. So what I'm sharing with you now, no one's ever done before in terms of correlating it. The science is there. I'm still building it out, but now we know there is, in fact, direct correlations between certain facial characteristics and predominance of hormones, which is analogous from an attribute perspective to the personality types that the East and West have both identified. So this is what it looks like. Where is it? I got to find it first, guys. Just give me a minute. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is just a quick chart that I put together. I taught my Soulmate Secrets class a couple weeks back, and this is what I taught them. So people who are very strong in dopamine and norepinephrine, these people are known as curious energetic types, right? So if you were to take the Fisher type indicator, it would show, based on the questions you answered, a predominance of dopamine and norepinephrine. These people qualify as an explorer type. These are very young. They correspond to the sanguine personality type from the Greek Hippocratic system, or the fire element in Chinese five-element theory. People who are more serotonin dominant, we call these social norm compliant. These are very stable people. We call them builders in the Fisher system. These are very yin type people. They tend to be very melancholic, and they correspond to the earth and metal categories, right? Now, obviously, you would need to know what qualities correspond to each of these elements. And if you were to see the characteristics of fire versus dopamine, you would see it jump out at you. Tough-minded people are more testosterone driven. These would correspond to very woody people, or the void, or akasha, and corresponds to the phlegmatic Greek character type, or the wood and metal element. Okay, and you can see, if you combine social norm compliant with tough-minded, you would get someone who's very metallic from a Chinese five-element standpoint. Someone who's very dopaminergic, someone who is very young. They would be a little bit more on the wood side. Okay. Pro-social behavior is estrogenic based. We call these negotiators, or these are very yin people, very watery people. And these people have a lot of water and earth elements to them. And that's how they correspond. Okay. So the way we figured this out was, let me find another chart for you. Okay, so this is kind of how it plays out. So sanguine individuals, people who are more in the fire element, optimistic, impulsive, energetic, loving, they tend to do best with other people, other explorers, or other people who are fire element. People who are melancholic are builders. They tend to socialize more. They're more values oriented, very traditional. They tend to be a little bit more rigid in their thinking. These people do better with people who are also melancholic or earth. Okay. Phlegmatic individuals, they tend to be a little bit more on the unemotional side. They tend to rationalize a little bit more. These people tend to do well with wood people, tend to do really well with other wood people or water people. Okay. Choleric individuals, these people tend to be more watery. They tend to do well with woody people or other water people. But actually, wood tends to be a better match based on Fisher's work in terms of personality. So again, I think what you're looking at here is a general tendency. Certainly there are exceptions to every rule, but that's kind of what my research is leading me towards, and this is what I would consider to be modern face reading. So again, it's very easy to see now yin versus yang. These people are very, very rigid in their thinking. These people are very, very open in their thinking. These people are very, very tough. These people are very, very gentle, loving, and enfolding, like water is. Okay. These people are very achievement oriented. These people are very relationship oriented. So you can see how these people would be a very good match. Okay. So questions? Oh, we got 16 more things, comments in the chat here. What's the hormonal pathway? Do hormones affect emotions? Yes. So fire energy and blood energy are the same. Yes, in a 5-element perspective, yes, they are. So can you manifest these energies or get more of it with things like diet? Yes, you can. Remember, hormonal pathways can change based on lifestyle and temperament, right? If you get somebody who is very skinny or who's very, very metallic, they don't have a lot of musculature, and you send them into the gym, you have them lift heavy weights for a long period of time, they will start to get more woody, right? Because you're overtaxing the, you're putting stress on the system, the body will start to produce what? More testosterone. Therefore, the jaw will start to increase, the brow bones will start to enlarge, right? They'll still, because they're more metallic, they'll still have very aquiline features, but those wood aspects that are a byproduct of extra testosterone will start to come out, right? And they'll tend to get a little bit more aggressive, right? So yeah, everything is, and that's what's cool about this, is that if you look at things from the hormonal pathway and then cross-correlate it from a behavioral attribute standpoint, there's a consistency here. And I won't tell you all the things I know about the 4 Hippocratic personality types: bucolic, phlegmatic, melancholic, and sanguine. But there are direct elemental correspondences there with the Greek systems as well. So this is how we look at it. If we look at things in terms of the attributes and correlate them to hormonal pathways, we can get a very clear idea of what bonds with life. And the nice thing about Fisher's work is that it's been tested on literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people all over the world. And it's the only personality indicator based on the ratio of hormonal pathways in your body. And we can correlate that directly to the Chinese 5-element and Greek Hippocratic systems. There's a direct correlation, right? So hopefully that helps. Any other questions about that? All right. Well, that being said, just a quick reminder before we log off, for those of you who are on the fence, for those of you who want to get into more deeply into the face reading materials, we're offering our special face reading for fun and profit home study course. It starts with a $1,497 value. It's going to include, free of charge, the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy home study course, valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you free. Vibrational Healing, Road Influence, and Energy Healing Made Easy home study course, valued at $1,497. People Reading for Fun and Profit, Body Language Secrets, $997 value. We're going to give that to you free. The Lie to Me If You Dare, How to Catch a Liar crash course, valued at $97. And if for those of you who sign up before I log off on the webinar, you're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Practice Mentoring Group free trial, valued at $594. Face Reading Level 2, the pre-release version, for $1,497 value. We're going to give that to you free. And you're going to get a free VIP ticket to our Face Reading 3-day virtual intensive, scheduled for February 23rd, the 25th or 26th? No, 25th, 26th, 27th. My bad. All you got to do to get yours is go to www.davidsnydernlp.com/face, www.nlppower.com, davidsnydernlp.com/face, or reach out to Stephanie directly at 858-282-4663. And so once again, physiology leads emotion, Victor Ricken says. Yes. But the nice thing now is we actually have a map now that allows us to really make some crossroads. Fortune says, does facial hair mean anything? It generally amplifies the traits it's covering, generally speaking. Okay. What's the Hippocratic equivalent in the Hermetic elements? Phlegmatic corresponds to fire. Melancholic corresponds to earth, I believe. Oh, wait, sanguine is fire. Phlegmatic is wood, or would be akasha, or air. And then, hold on, let me go back and look. 1 second. Okay, so choleric would be water. Phlegmatic would be akasha or air. Melancholic would be akasha or air. I'm sorry, not would be mostly metal, earth or air. And then sanguine would be equivalent to fire predominantly. Okay. Expressed anger, which is severely punished. Yeah, okay. All right. You guys have fun? Did you learn some stuff? Okay. All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you all for coming out. And in the words of, if we can't start this program yet, how can we start Healing Journey so we can join when we can? Reach out to Stephanie. Get in on our next Self-Mastery Supercharger program in January. It's probably the best place to start. Or you can always find useful tidbits on the websites. We have a whole podcast library there that you can use. And then we also have a lot of free stuff on our YouTube channel, lots of products for full price on our website. You can always do that. But if you have any questions about where to go or how to get started, reach out to Stephanie at 858-282-4663, and we'll show you how to get going. All right. In the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, everybody. Enjoy. If you had a good time, please share this video to as many people as you can. Get in on the fun. Go out into the world and do this stuff. Right. Last call for getting your packages. Remember that you can do one installment of $9.97 or break it up into 3 easy payments of just $3.97. Stephanie's very easy to work with. You have 60 days to give it a shot. If it works, keep it. If not, give us a call. We'll make it right.